home and business computer industry. Sinclair Electronics was a British success story inspired by Clive Sinclair's invention of the pocket calculator in the early 1970s. Sir Clive went on to launch computer kits that enthusiasts could build in their own homes. The Spectrum, one of the first mass-market computers designed for an early generation of gamers. He left school at 17 to pursue his passion for electronics, and by 1984, launching the QL computer for businesses, he had a clear vision of where the industry was heading.
The computer business generally is a long way from being even remotely near its end. It's an industry which is going to become the biggest industry in the world, bar none, bigger than cars, bigger than steel, and bigger than shipbuilding. Most of those computers, not just in numbers, which is obvious, but also in money, will be personal computers.
How right he was. His business would be eventually outmaneuvered by larger competitors, including, of course, Apple and Microsoft. And his C5, an electric tricycle, was a major business flop. But he was an entrepreneur with unparalleled vision, even though, quite extraordinarily, he deliberately never used email. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
FSN is an independent source of news for TV, radio and digital networks worldwide. You can find more of our minute-by-minute updates on Twitter. Follow us there at Feature Story. And we have a wealth of audio and video stories from our global news bureaus on Facebook. You can find us there by following Feature Story News. Stay tuned for further updates right here. But for now, that's the latest Feature Story News. William Denzelo reporting.
Now, a lot of little girls do ballet even though their fathers couldn't care less and don't see what the big deal is. But one talented little prodigy actually choreographed a whole ballet that her father could enjoy and even look forward to. Let's meet Erin Kemper and her father, Jack.
Hi.
Thanks for having us.
Erin, how did you do that?
I thought about all the things that my dad likes to watch and put it into a ballet.
Well, we have a special treat for you today because Erin is now going to perform her new ballet. When I pay the bills, I get to make the rules.
We can't afford that. World War II. I miss your mother too, but we're going to have to do the best without her. Go Redskins!
Bravo! Well done. Boy, I wish you were mine. You know, my two girls are grown up, but you still couldn't pay me to watch one of their a cappella shows. What inspired you to create this amazing ballet?
I'm really inspired by the theme of my dad paying any attention to me at all.
Now, at the end, I hear she just put the game up on the big screen.
I don't know where she gets it.
This is the Onion News Network. Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live. We are kicking off another episode here on the live Saturday edition of the show. The phone lines, as always, are open for you if you want to join us. Our number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. In the studio here tonight, it's Ian.
Nicholas Mountaineer.
And the captain is here.
And you can bring up anything you want. I just got back a few hours ago from what I would consider to be a good protest. Good size. Not too big, not huge, not too small, but dozens of people.
Did you get a new shirt while you were there?
No, I got this from Bonnie.
Oh, okay. It's cool.
Thank you. She gave me a shirt that says peace for those that don't know. They're not watching our video feed.
Describe that.
And anyway, we both went out. Actually, Bonnie and I and Coconut, the dog, went to this event. It was in Nashua at a place called Greeley Park. Nice park and very, very large properties. Plenty of room there. Anyway, dozens of people showed up. I left. I had to go because she had to go to work, so we had to leave by like noon 30 or so. So it was actually scheduled to go for a few more hours after that. It started at 10 a.m.
Okay.
So maybe even more people. It was one of those like all-day things, like show up when you can kind of things. And it was some of the folks that were involved with Absolute Defiance, which is one of the protest groups here in New Hampshire that was out in front of the governor's house earlier this year. There were the 5 Leader guys. I don't know if I'm saying the name of their group right, but they've been protesting out in front of the hospital chain called Dartmouth Medical Center here in New Hampshire. The nurses have been out in front of these hospitals for the last several weeks.
Yep.
In fact, one of them, which was the headquarters in Lebanon, they were doing 24 hours. They would have somebody there at all times. day or night. Usually it's just one person because
but that's dedication.
This is New Hampshire. There's not a lot of people here, and to be out there for that amount of time, it's hard. People got to work, And so they were. Some of those folks were there as well, and went out there with some independence information. I brought a printed petition because, as you probably know, we've been talking a lot more recently. I mean, we've talked for a long time about independence here on New Hampshire. The idea of states like New Hampshire, California, Texas, leading and leaving the United States and doing it peacefully. So I wanted to take the temperature of the group. I figured it would be a pretty friendly crowd towards this because these guys were out for what was called the Worldwide Demonstration. And actually it was the founder of Absolute Defiance who called into our show, a couple weeks ago to tell us about this. Big thing. This wasn't just Nashua, New Hampshire, where this event happened. It was all over the planet. And all of it happened today, and I'm on their website.
Yeah, we had somebody call in on one of the shows I was on asking for pointers on how to help set that up. He wanted to do his own protest, I think, out in Cincinnati or something.
Yeah, Domster, I think was that.
Yeah, right.
Yep. And it's good to hear someone calling in and saying, hey, I want to start a protest out here. Yeah,
and I need help doing so, or advice or whatever.
Today, the Worldwide Demonstration, also known as the Worldwide Rally for Freedom, I'm just going to read from their About page in case you missed it in your city or a city near you, is an internationally syndicated community demonstration dedicated to emboldening citizens to push back against coronavirus-related restrictions in their countries. The event is deployed by our member organizations in each city with full local autonomy at the grassroots level. So it wasn't some sort of top-down controlled communist thing that some of these protests are very, very centrally controlled out there. The event is deployed by our member organizations. Demonstrations are coordinated in a decentralized manner using international consensus to align the date and leaving all event-related decisions in the hands of our local implementers. All events operated by Worldwide Demonstration member organizations are peaceful and apolitical. Now, of course, every individual is up to them, right? So somebody had a F Biden flag at this particular event. So each person is as political as they want to be.
We could use more of those.
Well, and I think, at least for the time being, that Joe Biden is really the perfect face of government. Because, I mean, he's not in command of this. We're not talking about a Stalin here. No, he's
a tool.
Yes, exactly.
I'm sorry, you mean Emperor Biden?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Emperor Biden is not actually in command of this particular ship. Mm-hmm. He is doing very much what he is told. And I think that he does make a perfect face for the nature of this nonsensical empire that is run by who knows who.
But he's losing patience with you.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
he is. He's losing patience with me making my own decisions about my life. I mean, he's been so patient with that.
Yeah.
And there was at least one heckler that showed up who was losing patience with us as well, and he got pretty mad. And
a protest
shouting.
Heckler?
Yeah, he started shouting.
I wish I was there.
Yeah, I got some video of that, so at some point we'll get that online. It's going to take some while. It's going to take a while to edit it because we also interviewed people as we were doing the petition that we were doing, which I'll tell you about in a moment. We interviewed some folks about their thoughts on independence, and so it'll be a little bit of editing for that
Killer,
one.
I look forward to it.
So they're taking a stand for 5 important freedoms. This is why they're demonstrated today. Freedom of speech, freedom of movement, freedom of choice, freedom of assembly, and freedom of health, all of which I support. A lot of times, I show up at a protest, and it's like, okay, I'm with you on this thing, but I'm not really with you on
or these 2, but not the other 3, or whatever it is. Yeah.
But, hey, I support you, so I want to come out and check out the crowd and talk to people. And usually my goal at an event like this is to bring people closer to freedom.
Yes.
But with these important freedoms that they're protesting in favor of, I mean, I got nothing to say to they're already there. They're on spot.
Yeah, that is 100% in line with the non-aggression principle.
Lockdowns and border closures have taken lives to increase suicide rates and destroyed livelihoods, causing financial ruin. No population should ever again be subjected to ubiquitous public incarceration. Excessive coronavirus restrictions measures must come to an end, and all state emergency declarations enabling these measures must be repealed. Tyrannical suppression of dissenting voices must be stopped, and peaceful citizen assembly must be respected by police forces instead of being violently crushed. Now, it doesn't look like the police ignored the Australians who protested, according to the story here. Now, all these videos started hitting last night of the fighting. I think you mentioned this, Peakless Mountaineer, and I saw this video as well. It's about a 45-second long video with a line of police and a large group of protesters who just crashes through.
Yeah, and you're finding these stories popping up even on very highly censored social media. So
it's about time.
Yeah. So I mean, there must be enough of this happening that even the highly censored social media just has to let you know that
can't make it go away.
Yeah,
sweet. I mean, I hope nobody got hurt. And
they got hurt.
I know that things.
There were people getting pepper sprayed,
stuff like this. People get trampled, and all sorts of things go on. But I don't know. People have asked many times, what do you think is keeping all this thing? Well, it's people's lack of willingness to cooperate en masse, because the people in charge, a very small quantity of people. The people who want to be free and want to be left alone to live their lives. And
there's more of us.
There's far more by
quantity of people.
Orders of magnitude. So it's the people's willingness to act en masse, along with massive non-cooperation, that's going to get us out of this.
Well, apparently the Australian police took down a septuagenarian female at this particular event, violently took her to the ground, and then proceeded to double pepper spray the woman on the ground. Now, I don't know if that was in this particular video clip, but there was another something I saw online about that. And so the caption was the perfect expression of what Australia is like right now.
That sucks, man.
In the video I saw, one of the really cool parts of it is you saw a bunch of cops trying to grab this one guy to arrest him or tie up his hands or whatever, and this other guy comes back and grabs him and pulls him back into the crowd.
Wow.
And that is what we need. Here's a person I don't know, but I know I don't want you taken off to a cold cell by the police for doing the right thing.
Well, unfortunately, according to Reuters, Australia police arrested 235 people in Melbourne and 32 of them in Sydney on Saturday at unsanctioned anti-lockdown rallies. Unsanctioned rallies. And several police officers were injured in clashes with protesters. 6 officers required hospitalization. Several were knocked to the ground and trampled, according to the footage that some of us have seen.
If it was a sanctioned rally, would it really be a protest?
Yeah, I was going to say, if you need to get a license for your protest, are you really protesting anything?
That's a great point. It always bugged me when people would say, "Oh, we're going to get a permit for." No, you don't need to get a permit.
No, you really don't.
No,
what you need to get is enough people.
Yeah,
and some balls.
It's your right. You don't even need enough people. You just need people with the balls to show up and do it. There's more coming up here. If you want to join us, the number 603-283-6160. Were you at one of these worldwide demonstrations today, and you want to talk about how it went? You're welcome to join us here on Free Talk Live. The live Saturday show continues.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless free market non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
Breaking weather news. Belize is sunny and around 82 degrees every day this week.
What's the forecast for your life? If current politics and economic prospects are cramping your freedom, escape to the tropics. ECI Development has affordable second homes for you to own or rent in Belize and other tropical countries. Places with stable governments and growing economies. Secure your freedom now. To find out more, send an email to ftl@ecidevelopment.com.
After a devastating war, the alien visitors were driven back, and their willing human collaborators were left behind to face the music. When Emma Jean Anderson's ex-lover springs her from prison, Nathan Foster and his 14-year-old nephew Ben are tasked with bringing the pair to justice. An easy enough job until they discover something is inside Emma Jean, and the fate of the planet hangs in the balance. The Family Business by Mike Coopery from BaneBooks.com. Free Talk Live.
Most people in federal prison are in for drug crimes, and that's not a violent crime.
What is it, 70%? Something like that? It's
some
insane.
number like that. And then when you...
I'm sorry, you can't classify a drug crime as a non-violent crime.
Yes, I can.
You got people that can't afford drugs, so they buy them and sell 75% of it to somebody else to support their habit.
What's the violent crime there? You just told me about people buying and selling drugs. Where was the violent crime?
The violent crime comes from their actions of buying it and not being able to afford it, so they sell 75% of it on the street. That turns into
That's not violence,
That's
sir.
not violence. That's sales.
That's selling a product that other people voluntarily want to purchase from you. There's nothing violent about any of that.
Replace the word drugs with milkshake, and you'll realize that there's no violence involved.
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern, live on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
The LRN.FM social media channels have been revamped. We've eliminated Facebook and focused on other platforms like Twitter and Mastodon, the decentralized alternative to Twitter. On our accounts, you'll find posts from multiple LRN.FM show hosts together in one place. Follow us on Twitter at twitter.lrn.fm, or better yet, move to the decentralized Mastodon social media platform at toot.lrn.fm, toot.lrn.fm. I think you'll like it.
Free speech is protected on the internet, right? Not always. Government agencies try to limit free speech and commerce on the net. Luckily, when they do, the Institute for Justice is there to defend your First Amendment right to free speech. IJ helped set the first federal precedent for internet free speech in 1999, and ever since has worked to prevent unconstitutional roadblocks in cyberspace. Visit our website today at ij.org.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
This is Free Talk Live. You can bring up whatever you want here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. In the studio, it's Ian.
Beakless Mountaineer.
And the captain.
We're going to go back to your calls and thoughts. We're talking about the worldwide demonstrations that happened today. And we were touching on first the Australian ones that, well, they happened first because it's already tomorrow over there. So... yeah. Right now it's Sunday there, so the videos from their Saturday demonstrations started coming in on Friday night to us, including a massive, and I don't know, was that in Sydney or was that Melbourne? Do we even know where that one was?
I forget.
With the 45-second long clip with dozens of people just crashing through a police line and lots of violence. I mean, I don't like to see it, but it's inevitable. You know, you keep pushing people, you keep telling them what they can't do and how they have to live and how they have to lock down and how they have to obey and that they can't go to work and that they can't take care of their families and that they can't go outside, and go beyond 5 kilometers beyond their home and just all kinds of ridiculous restrictions. Somebody's going to get angry.
Yeah, well, most of the violence just isn't visible.
Right.
Like, that's the real violence, right?
Well, there's
there.
violence at home, a lot of domestic violence that happens when people are forced to stay together.
Well, and I mean...
depression.
People wouldn't be doing this if there wasn't the threat. And threats are violent.
Yep, that's absolutely true. So that is exploding in Australia to some extent. Police arrested hundreds of people down there during these, what they call unauthorized protests, and you want to comment, you're certainly welcome to join us.
There's somebody on my social media named Samantha Packer. She's part of the Australian Sovereignty Alliance, and she said, watch out for your local nurses, doctors, police, etc., ambulance, blah, 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 out at the rallies today. They are standing up with us all over Australia. They will not be in uniform, but they are coming out in numbers to their local rallies. I have nurses close to me who are about to lose everything they've worked for their entire lives because they've been told to get the jab this month or be banned from the hospital grounds.
Wow. So, there was a guy in medical scrubs out at the one that I went to today. I don't know what he did. He wouldn't say, but
yeah,
he did say he didn't want to be on camera because he didn't want to lose his job.
It's good to see public employees participating in the protests.
Well, hospital I wouldn't call a public employee.
No, but she was saying police, firemen, ambulance drivers, and those types of people are, government employees is essentially the gist that I'm getting from there. Because it's going to take that to really make a difference. It's going to take people who are working for the heathen, the Leviathan that is government, to go, hey, you know what? I realize this is my livelihood, but I have to protest against this. I have to do something. They see that it's wrong. They know that it's wrong. It's good to see that.
Well, if they want to do something, they should go and arrest the executives that are making these executive orders.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that would be something. But hey, I appreciate the verbal support. There was a cop in Keene that walked up to us the other day at dinner and expressed his support for the anti-vaccination protests. He says he doesn't want to be enforcing anything like that. So, but whether he will or not is another question, because he kind of does everything he's told to do.
Here's a thought: if you don't want to be enforcing that, don't.
Indeed. Let's go to your calls and thoughts, though. Domster is on the line in Ohio. You're on Free Talk Live. Hello, Domster.
Hey guys, thanks for the shout out first of all.
Sure.
Yeah, I was calling to tell you guys about my experience today. So, as captain, as you mentioned, I called I think a couple of weeks ago when you were hosting, and asked for advice about how to run a protest. I've never done anything like this before, so we did it today. I'm not going to lie, the turnout was a little. It was disappointing. I did get some groups to give us coverage, like the Northern Kentucky Tea Party, but partly from my fault. I was there a few minutes late, so some people went home. But there were three of us, including myself, and we had some really good conversations with people. Yeah, I was kind of disappointed about the turnout, but one of the notable conversations I had was with an elderly lady, and she said, yeah, I support freedom, but I have 3 grandkids, and I don't want them being taught by a teacher who hasn't been vaccinated. So, any guesses how I responded to her when she said that?
I hope with compassion and kindness. I don't know.
I don't know, Dom.
Well, what I said was, you do agree, or you do know that the CDC say you can still transmit it, right? She said yes. So I said, so you agree that they can still transmit it, and you're worried about them transmitting it to your grandkids, right? She said yes. I said, respectfully, that doesn't make any sense.
Wow.
And she walked away.
No.
So, but yeah, I also had, there was a conversation with a nurse who, he didn't complete, he was pro-vax, but he understood the argument that it should be voluntary.
Sure.
So,
Nice.
yeah, we had a really good dialogue with him, and I was surprised. I was kind of nervous. I thought that people would be like,
hostile,
really nasty to us. But there were a couple coward people one guy who gave us the middle finger. But overall,
that always happens.
Yeah. Overall, I was pretty happy with how it went.
Did you make signs in that?
I did, Captain. You're gonna love this. I made a sign that said, resist Biden and Sashi.
I like it.
I took
Well
your
done.
line, so.
Well done.
When you're putting an event like this together, it's hard to do what you did, and start from zero with virtually no networking in advance and try to get the word out about a thing. In New Hampshire, as I was describing, we had dozens of people by the time I left, and I was only there for the first 2 hours of it, so it was picking up a little bit by the time I had to go. And I thought, for New Hampshire, it wasn't bad. Great for New Hampshire is hundreds of people. If you can get 400 or 500 people out, that's like usually some of the biggest protests you'll see in New Hampshire. But dozens isn't terrible. I would say we had about 100 maybe by the time I left. And if you get 3 people out, it just shows that you don't have the networking, you don't have the people, you don't have enough people that you're connected with, and that's part of what these events are for, is to meet people, get them into chat groups and message boards and forums and things like that, and then generate those those links.
But what he does have now is a nucleus for the next time.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. So you've made some connections. Although I understand you're thinking about making a move to New Hampshire, Domster, and of course that's the easiest way to do this is you plug into the existing network here of people, and when you come to New Hampshire, then it's just like, hey, what can you plug me into? You just start asking people, and oh yeah, we got this Telegram group, or we got this Matrix chat, or we got this forum over here, and then you just meet the people that you like, and you plug in with,
oh yeah, there's Bob, he organizes this or whatever.
Well, and the first time's always the hardest.
Yeah.
I mean, so this is there's a steep learning curve for a lot of this stuff. So like the first time you try just about anything, you're not going to be great at it.
But he did show
you
people
pop the seal,
He did show people in the area that there are people,
somebody there,
there are people that maybe are thinking like them. They're not alone. They're not the only one. They saw people holding signs.
Thank you, Domster, for the call tonight. I appreciate you, man. This is Free Talk Live. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. How'd it go for you out there today at the worldwide demonstration? Free Talk Live's video archives have been on LBRY for years. LBRY is an uncensorable, decentralized, blockchain-based media sharing protocol, and we're big fans of it here on Free Talk Live. In 2020, LBRY launched Odysee, a video sharing website to compete with YouTube, and it's really taking off. Now with over 1 million channels, many of whom are disaffected YouTube creators. During YouTube's crackdown for not towing the government line on COVID, the Free Talk Live YouTube channel started receiving strikes and could be completely taken down at any moment. Thankfully, Odysee started offering live streaming, so we're now streaming live every night and posting our video archives permanently to Odysee. You can watch live or anytime on our Odysee channel by visiting video.freetalklive.com. If you want to go all in, download the desktop app at lbry.com, and then every video archive you watch, you'll help seed and keep it online forever. At minimum, we ask you visit video.freetalklive.com and follow us on Odysee today. video.freetalklive.com.
From Feature Story News in New York, I'm William Denzelo with the Week in Review. The United States this week has defended its new military alliance with Australia and the United Kingdom, following an international diplomatic backlash. The three-way AUKUS agreement will allow Australia to build nuclear-powered submarines using US and UK technology. But the security alliance has angered China, Beijing seeing it as an effort to counter its claims in the South China Sea and cause problems with US ally France. Nick Harper reports from Washington.
France felt particularly cold-shouldered, losing out on a $66 billion deal to build Australia's submarines. US Secretary of State Anthony Blinken tried to calm the waters of international diplomacy.
There is no regional divide separating the interests of our Atlantic and our Pacific partners. This partnership with Australia and the United Kingdom is a signal that we're committed to working with our allies and partners, including in Europe.
The White House says France was warned about the alliance before it was announced. Despite their feelings of betrayal, say the pact will help to counter China's dominance in the Indo-Pacific region.
US Secretary of State Antony Blinken faced a grilling on Capitol Hill this week for the Biden administration's handling of the withdrawal from Afghanistan. Chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, Senator Bob Menendez, also threatened to subpoena Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin if he doesn't agree to testify. Kate Fisher reports from the US Capitol.
The sharp rebuke from the fellow Democrat came as Secretary of State Antony Blinken faced a second day of questioning by lawmakers over the chaotic exit from Afghanistan.
While we understand and appreciate the security issues that were at play, it's confounding that such a chaotic process arose to begin with.
But Mr. Blinken strongly defended President Joe Biden's decision to end America's 20-year war and the administration's handling of the evacuation. He said no one in the US government predicted the Afghan security forces would surrender to the Taliban so quickly.
And the United Nations is warning Earth is on a catastrophic pathway, with global temperatures poised to rise 2.7 degrees Celsius by the end of the century. That's according to a new report from the UN Climate Agency. Rachel Silverman has more.
The report shows emissions of planet-warming gases are poised to grow by 16% during this decade compared with 2010 levels, even though the latest scientific research indicates they need to decrease by at least a quarter by 2030 to avert the worst impacts of global warming. That level of warming is likely to worsen extreme wildfires, droughts, and floods, to increase the frequency of deadly heat waves, and to threaten coastal cities with rising sea levels.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
This is Free Talk Live. If you want to join us, you can. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. We're talking about the worldwide demonstration that happened today. I went to the one in Nashua, New Hampshire. There may have been one near you. And the one that I was at went well. Everything was peaceful, had no issues from the police. But then again, that tends to be how things go in New Hampshire. In a lot of cases, over the last 18 months, police have not been visible at all. Now, whether they send an undercover officer in to work the crowd, I don't know. I didn't see any, I didn't know everybody at this particular event, but there were a lot of familiar faces that if you've been to an event over the last 18 months in New Hampshire, you've probably seen some of these folks before. So whether the police were there or not, hard to really say for sure, but they sure didn't show themselves if there were. And of course, our group was completely peaceful, so there's no issue. And to that extent, there really aren't that many terrible tyranny crackdowns going on in New Hampshire in this area at the moment. Now, we did have our tyranny last year. There was the mask mandate. There were various different business restrictions, although to be fair, New Hampshire is the only state of all the 50 states to actually be returning the fines that they issued to the 8 businesses. So there wasn't a whole lot of fines issued, but to the 8 businesses that did get issued about $10,000 in totals worth of fines, the state is cutting checks to those people. And that's thanks to the Free Staters in the legislature. That's thanks to the Liberty Reps, as some of us call them there, that we actually have freedom-loving people in the state legislature that made that possible. And they forced the governor's hand on that. He did not want to sign that bill, but he basically had to. They put it in like the budget or something.
And to illustrate a bit of difference between other states and New Hampshire was, at first they just said, hey, local jurisdictions, it's up to you to put in, and only a few of them did. Like largely the state of New Hampshire didn't put in any sort of mandates, right? And then eventually I think the governor, was like, well, everybody else is doing it, I better do it too, and he eventually put in a statewide one. But then he lifted that one, but other jurisdictions were still allowed to retain theirs, and they did for a minute. But then they went away. So it's a bit different than other states where, it was just the governor coming in, going statewide, right? New Hampshire gave local communities the option, right? So the local governance component operates a bit differently here than it does in my, experience in other states.
We've covered the Australian protests that were also part of the worldwide demonstration with just a long line of hundreds of people crashing through a police barricade in a violent manner, but these people wanted to go where they wanted to go, and the police wanted to stop them. And just to remind you how bad things are in Australia right now, this is a video from 9 News. Now, this isn't from yesterday in Australia, but it's from within the last week or so, and I've just had this one in my show prep. This is what is making the news.
Emma, good evening. What can you tell us?
Hey, well, it might look a bit quiet here now, but just a few hours ago there was a lot of drama. A man was reportedly walking down the street and not wearing a mask when police...
That's it. I mean, there's more to the clip, but that's what a man was arrested for in Australia recently.
Walking down the street
this is
with
what's
a
making,
human face?
This is what's making headlines. This is what is a 45-second clip on the nightly news.
Spotted him and stopped him. There was some type of confrontation, a struggle, and the man was being attempted to be arrested, and police were investigating whether he had a medical episode, but at this stage they're saying there was some sort of a struggle. Ambulances were called, and that man was taken to hospital where he is in a stable condition. Police believe he will be fine. He is under police guard, and police say they are considering charges for him allegedly not wearing a mask.
Yeah, after they put this guy into the hospital for whatever, sounded like he might have had a heart attack or something like that. Something happened to him medically while the police were manhandling him over walking down the street without a mask on.
I keep calling Australia the new East Germany, and they are doing all the right things.
So no wonder people are mad to the point where they're willing to risk whatever charges and or neck breaking and head bashing might come from breaking through a police line, because it was a violent thing to do, and the police were violent back. They did successfully arrest hundreds of people, and now this was apparently in Melbourne, where I think that was where the majority of the arrests were, if I recall. Oh no, yeah, that was the majority of the arrests.
And I want to remind our listeners that is coming soon to a theater near you, and by theater I mean your community. We've seen this since the whole COVID thing kicked in. We've seen it from governments time and time again, where what one government does and gets away with, eventually the other governments monkey see, monkey do.
Yep.
And so, yes, it is outrageous that a man walking down the street with a human face, as you said, Peakless, it has been beaten and put into a hospital by agents of the government.
Yep.
If you think that's not coming to you, you're wrong, unless, of course, everybody starts standing up.
He was clearly in possession of contraband.
A face.
Yes.
Yeah.
Those are not allowed.
And
those are dangerous weapons.
Speaking of that, I've got a very disturbing video that I want to play for you guys here in a little bit. But we're still talking about these protests that happened. Again, Melbourne, Sydney, massive arrests as people were, these people are supposed to be in their homes. They're supposed to be not going out to quote-unquote unauthorized protests. But these were going on all around the world. And we just had Domster on the line telling us about what happened in Cleveland. If you want to call in and share your story with us, 603-283-6160. So I just wanted to continue with their About page on worldwidedemonstration.com, just because as I was looking through this, it's like, wow, there's really nothing I can disagree with here. It's a really nice, voluntarist, freedom-loving sounding event, and this was happening all around the world. So it talks about the closures, the lockdowns leading to increased suicide rates and financial ruin for people. Excessive restrictions measures must come to an end. All state of emergency declarations must be repealed. What we're seeing, though, is more of them being implemented. We're seeing a new ratcheting up of crackdowns. Of course, Australia, it is still wintertime there. It's about to come to an end, but the tyranny isn't coming to an end. They've said in Australia that they're not going to lessen the lockdown restrictions until 70% have the vaccine in some of the states. Now, I don't know if all of the states of Australia have said the same thing, but in New South Wales, for instance, which is where Sydney is, that's what they've been saying. They've been on lockdown restriction ever since July or June of this year, and last we looked, they were in like the 30 to 40% vaccination range. So they're nowhere near a 70% vaccination rate. They're not going to be going out unless massive civil disobedience occurs and the government crumbles.
I repeatedly hear people, particularly on the social media, say things, well, like, that's not tyranny. Oh, really? At what percentage would it be tyranny? Right? Well, because they're not requiring everybody. They're only requiring it up to, and it's like...
Seriously?
Yeah. It's like, it is such a dumb argument because it's at least 70% tyranny.
It's a tyrant.
At a minimum.
You are dealing with a tyrant when they say you must inject this into your veins or you cannot leave your home.
Agreed.
And that is clear tyranny.
Yeah.
And if you do try to leave your home, there's a news report about you and a manhunt ensues. Because remember, what I just played for you wasn't the story about the other guy that was making news in Australia for leaving his apartment without permission during a quarantine lockdown. Tyrannical suppression.
But he was spattering all over.
He was breathing.
He was sneezing alone in an escalator or an elevator.
Yeah.
The horror.
Tyrannical suppression of dissenting voices must be stopped, and peaceful citizen assembly must be respected by police forces instead of being violently crushed. We have had our bodily autonomy violated by mask mandates, restricting our ability to breathe and speak freely. All mask mandates must end. Plans to mandate coronavirus vaccinations enforced by totalitarian vaccine passports, which, by the way, New York City just rolled their vaccine passport out this week. They are not yet writing tickets, but they are going around checking on businesses.
I got a new name for New York. Screw York.
Yeah, get out of that place.
Yeah.
If you love freedom, you need to be gone from there. They're being rolled out internationally. We will not accept movement licenses, aka vaccine passports, becoming a part of our travel requirements. Any mandates that violate informed consent must be stopped totally through legal and activist pushback. It's again from the worldwide demonstration. International demonstrations happened today. How did it go where you were? In D.C., there was another event that wasn't associated with this. It was regarding January 6th, and we'll tell you about that one coming up here in moments. That one was kind of interesting how that one turned out. It's Free Talk Live.
Hey, you are going to love the movie Victimless Crime Spree. It's hilarious, heartwarming, and carries a ton of inspiring freedom messages. Feeling down about the lack of liberty in your life? You need to put on this film with some friends and have a good laugh. It's a true story about me and my friends in New Hampshire living free, singing, dancing, and getting arrested. Of course, it's all on video, and the bad guys, the cops, judges, bailiffs, and sheriffs, they all play their part like it's out of a movie or something. You would think we scripted the whole thing, but it's real life. Go ahead and have a watch, and if it's been a while, have another look. I guarantee you'll notice things now that you didn't notice before. And the best part is that you're going to walk away feeling a renewed sense of your own power. You are the master of your destiny, and you will be free in your lifetime. Victimless Crime Spree.
I'm crazy about My Magic Mud. This is the most important oral care product created this millennium, and I'm not kidding. We all have different opinions on politics and issues, but we all have mouths. And I want yours to be as clean as possible, with teeth as bright as they were meant to be. I will never be without My Magic Mud. It's a little surprising, but man, does it work. If you only listen to one thing I say ever, go to mymagicmud.com and get 20% off with code FTL. mymagicmud.com, code FTL.
There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com. On Free Talk Live, we're bringing people to the ideas of liberty every day. From wrestling superstars like Glenn Jacobs.
You guys really are having an impact, I believe. Like I said, a lot of where I am now is due to listening to Free Talk Live. You changed my mind on some very important issues years ago.
To random people tuning in on the radio.
I was kind of stuck in the left-right paradigm. I heard your show by chance on a Saturday night. From there, I went on, joined the Free State Project, and become an amplifier. So, I mean, that's really the reason why I amp is because I know that if it wasn't for you guys being on as many stations as you are, I never would have found the ideas of liberty.
Your amp will directly change more lives by getting Free Talk Live in front of people looking for talk radio online and on the air. When you amp Free Talk Live, you get perks like access to the AMP-only Facebook group and AMP podcast. Visit amp.freetalklive.com. What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer-term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live. You can join us here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. We've been talking about international events that were going on, calling themselves the Worldwide Demonstration. WorldwideDemonstration.com is where you can learn more about it. It's already over at this point because, well, it's the end of the day and it was all set for today. Of course, there's other things going on internationally, like an event happening in Mulheim, Switzerland. You can get early bird tickets now for what's being called Liberty in Our Lifetime, that is being hosted by the Free Private Cities Foundation. Move quickly, though. The early bird rate only lasts until September 20th. After that, you can still get your tickets at lifetimeliberty.com. Liberty in Our Lifetime aims to explore projects happening right now around the world that are working to achieve a lofty goal of securing freedom in our lifetime. Speakers from Crypto Valley, Prospera, the Seasteading Institute, and more will be speaking at this October 16th event. Again, it's going to be in Mulheim, Switzerland, October 16th, but maybe going to Switzerland isn't really right for you, considering, well, there's all kinds of insane travel restrictions right now.
But if you do, you could get a watch and what else?
Some chocolate.
A babe?
Some cheese, maybe.
Some chocolate and a bank.
And a bank account. That's what it was, yeah.
They're not as good as you think they are.
Oh, no. No, they are not.
Digital tickets are available, though, so you can attend this event online. Just go to lifetimeliberty.com, then you can avoid the whole air travel and all that BS and the mandates and the vaccine requirements and testing requirements. So lifetimeliberty.com. Get your early bird tickets over there and check out the event happening called Liberty in Our Lifetime, Mulheim, Switzerland, October 16th. The website lifetimeliberty.com. So we're talking about the worldwide demonstration, and I'm just going over kind of the point of this particular event. Now, at the same time, there was another event happening in the capital of the United States, in Washington, D.C. today, that apparently was called Justice for J6. Now, J6 means January 6th. So this was supposed to be a reconvening of...
I thought J6 was a rapper or something.
This was supposed to be like a reconvening, and a lot of people were saying this was a clear like honeypot by federal agents. There were photographs that came out showing a bunch of dudes standing around in dark sunglasses looking like feds, basically, talking to one another because, according to the media, barely anyone showed up to this event.
Wow.
It was actually majority press and a huge amount of cops. So there was way more cops than there were protesters, and there were more press than there were protesters, and probably a good chunk of the protesters were undercover cops. In fact, Ford Fisher
what
was...
if we threw a protest and nobody came?
That's what happened. Quote, a few dozen attendees in Washington, D.C.,
They might literally have all been cops.
They may very well have been. There was at least one person with a gun, according to police, but he was one of theirs.
I was going to say, was he a cop?
Yeah, so interestingly, Ford Fisher was there, and he's a Liberty guy that does, like, he puts himself in the middle of some of the most violent clashes out there. So if the Proud Boys are fighting with Antifa and there's video of it, it's probably from Ford. He's got a helmet that he puts on and body armor or whatever, and he gets in there and gets some pretty crazy footage.
What might have been fun, though, is if a whole bunch of people did go to this protest and they also dressed up like, with the sunglasses and the earpiece and the, it's just...
So Ford's Twitter is news to share, news the number 2 share, but he posted this on his personal Twitter. Anyway, it's video of the armed police, like the armored police, the strike team, SWAT team looking guys with the helmets and everything, surrounding a dude who supposedly had a gun, and like somebody spotted him, printing on the shirt or whatever, right? Like somebody thought he had a gun, so he got reported to the police, or the police saw it. Cops surround him, they stop him, they frisk him, they pull out his wallet, open it up, and they see his badge.
I do like the idea of government destroying government.
Yeah.
So whenever government can interfere with government, I'm all for it.
Anyway, Ford got this on video, so it's like there's no doubt this guy with a black bandana on and dressed in like normal street clothes was an undercover police officer. So the one guy with the gun at the event that they found was one of their own. Yeah, I thought that was fun.
I'm surprised that he's allowed to wear body armor in D.C. Don't they consider that an offensive weapon or something?
The riot police.
The riot police. Yeah. So back to the story here, worldwidedemonstration.com, the one that I went to was one of these. That's what most people went to today. Was, again, the one in D.C. was not worldwide demonstration, was Justice for J6. And a lot of people thought that was just basically organized by the feds to try to reattract, the same crowd of people that was there on January 6th, bring them back in and rearrest or arrest more people.
Did they think that was going to work?
It didn't. So glad to see that. As one massive, united, and peaceful community, we will stand up and demand an end to the current restrictions and authoritarian control measures. Authoritarian coronavirus restrictions have damaged our lives more than any virus has. And even if the effects of the virus were more damaging, the restrictions to our freedoms would still have been unjust and unlawful. And that's something I've said this whole time. I said, look, even if this virus were 10 times as deadly as it is, and honestly, it's not as deadly as even they want you to think that it is. As we found out, I think it was last week, the numbers show that this is from The Atlantic, which is pro-lockdown, pro-control. Even they had to admit that 40 to 45% of the quote-unquote COVID hospitalizations were actually not for COVID. They were for something else that the person had.
Oh, I thought it was 50%.
Well, let's go conservative and say 40 to 45. That's what The Atlantic was reporting. Still, that's a lot of people who were quote-unquote hospitalized for COVID, but no. They were having a heart attack, or they had cancer, or they had some other kind of issue, and then when they got tested while they were in the hospital, oh, yeah, you've got COVID? Okay, you're now a statistic.
Yep.
So, even the government's official numbers are totally whacked. In fact, Peakless, you've got some numbers we're going to talk about here shortly, specifically regarding deaths and the vaccine, so we'll get into those numbers coming up here. But I just want to keep going with this statement on what these protests were all about today. Because, again, these were happening all around the world. Our fundamental freedoms have top priority, and we cannot allow them to become constrained for the sake of generations following us. We cannot allow our human rights to be repackaged as human privileges, to be conditioned upon compliance with authoritarianism. And that is exactly what is going on. That's how these governments are marketing the vaccine passport. They're literally telling you things like, oh, you can get your freedom pass. You need to get your freedom pass if you ever want to go out to eat again, if you ever want to go out to a gym again, if you ever want to go to the theater again.
Free men do not require papers to prove that they are free.
That's right, because if it's a right, then you exercise the right, and supposedly governments are supposed to respect those rights, which we know they don't, and now they're just throwing them any semblance of respect of those rights completely in the trash can, flushing it down the toilet. As the freedom movement develops around the world, a variety of new solutions are rising that will enable the people to take power back. An international freedom movement is emerging that is building alternatives to established power structures and ways of living. People are choosing to leave densely populated areas and forming new communities where they can more effectively govern themselves.
Oh, like moving to New Hampshire, for example.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And there really is no better plan than this. Look, I realize that people think Florida is some sort of a free place. Let me tell you, I left there 15 years ago. It is not. Florida is a police state. There are cops. It was actually surprising to me when I went back, because I'd been here for 6 years in New Hampshire. And yeah, there's some police here. But when I went back to Florida, having been gone for so long, when you're raised in a place, you're steeped in that environment. It's normal to you, right? But having been gone for 6 years, when I came back, I was looking at every intersection I drove through. I'm not exaggerating. There was a cop. You're parked at the intersection waiting to go through. There's a cop over in one of the other lanes. There's a cop driving through. There's police billboards on the side of the roads, like sheriff's departments endorsing political candidates. There's just cops everywhere.
Yep. Seattle is the same way. And Seattle cops are notorious for being a-holes. And they are everywhere. By way of comparison, I got out here and I'm like, I haven't seen a cop in like a day. I went a whole day without seeing a cop, man.
There's times when you can drive, and I've had this happen many times, more times than I can count, where I'll drive from Keene, which is where we live, the southwest corner of the state, to, say, Concord or Nashville or whatever, and not see a single cop the whole time. And now, you're driving through the woods mostly, but still, you still don't see a cop. There's not a whole lot of them. But it's not all just about that. Florida is also a massively populated state. Over, I think, 20 million people, 26 or something like that. It's not as many as Texas, but it is huge. And you can't get anything done in a place like that. There's not enough. There's still, even with an influx of people, and I understand there are some people moving to Florida because, look, I'll be honest with you, it's still better than New York.
Oh, by a long shot, yeah.
But it's also a place where a lot of New Yorkers move to, just so you know.
So how long will it be better than New York?
It's going to be better than New York. I mean, it's hard to get worse than New York. New York is the worst state by a long margin, even worse than California as far as freedom is concerned. So if you're moving from New York to Florida, you're doing better, but you don't have a chance of actually increasing liberty. You're just slowing this, the loss of it a little bit. There's more coming up here. You can join us, and you should join us in New Hampshire. It's Free Talk Live.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. chat.lrn.fm.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in New York, I'm William Denzelo with the Week in Review. The United States this week has defended its new military alliance with Australia and the United Kingdom, following an international diplomatic backlash. The three-way AUKUS agreement will allow Australia to build nuclear-powered submarines using US and UK technology. But the security alliance has angered China, Beijing seeing it as an effort to counter its claims in the South China Sea and cause problems with US ally France. Nick Harper reports from Washington.
France felt particularly cold-shouldered, losing out on a $66 billion deal to build Australia's submarines. US Secretary of State Anthony Blinken tried to calm the waters of international diplomacy.
There is no regional divide separating the interests of our Atlantic and our Pacific partners. This partnership with Australia and the United Kingdom is a signal that we're committed to working with our allies and partners, including in Europe.
The White House says France was warned about the alliance before it was announced. Despite their feelings of betrayal, say the pact will help to counter China's dominance in the Indo-Pacific region.
US Secretary of State Anthony Blinken faced a grilling on Capitol Hill this week for the Biden administration's handling of the withdrawal from Afghanistan. Chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, Senator Bob Menendez, also threatened to subpoena Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin if he doesn't agree to testify. Kate Fisher reports from the US Capitol.
The sharp rebuke from the fellow Democrat came as Secretary of State Anthony Blinken faced a second day of questioning by lawmakers over the chaotic exit from Afghanistan.
While we understand and appreciate the security issues that were at play, it's confounding that such a chaotic process arose to begin with.
But Mr. Blinken strongly defended President Joe Biden's decision to end America's 20-year war and the administration's handling of the evacuation. He said no one in the US government predicted the Afghan security forces would surrender to the Taliban so quickly.
And the United Nations is warning Earth is on a catastrophic pathway, with global temperatures poised to rise 2.7 degrees Celsius by the end of the century. That's according to a new report from the UN Climate Agency. Rachel Silverman has more.
The report shows emissions of planet-warming gases are poised to grow by 16% during this decade compared with 2010 levels, even though the latest scientific research indicates they need to decrease by at least a quarter by 2030 to avert the worst impacts of global warming. That level of warming is likely to worsen extreme wildfires, droughts, and floods, to increase the frequency of deadly heat waves, and to threaten coastal cities with rising sea levels.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. Today remembering Sir Clive Sinclair, who has died at the age of 81. Back in the 1980s, his name was synonymous with the rapid development of the home and business computer industry. Sinclair Electronics was a British success story inspired by Clive Sinclair's invention of the pocket calculator in the early 1970s. Sir Clive went on to launch computer kits that enthusiasts could build in their own homes. The Spectrum, one of the first mass-market computers designed for an early generation of gamers. He left school at 17 to pursue his passion for electronics, and by 1984, launching the QL computer for businesses, he had a clear vision of where the industry was heading.
The computer business generally is a long way from being even remotely near its end. It's an industry which is going to become the biggest industry in the world, bar none, bigger than cars, bigger than steel, and bigger than shipbuilding. Most of those computers, not just in numbers, which is obvious, but also in money, will be personal computers.
How right he was. His business would be eventually outmaneuvered by larger competitors, including, of course, Apple and Microsoft. And his C5, an electric tricycle, was a major business flop. But he was an entrepreneur with unparalleled vision, even though, quite extraordinarily, he deliberately never used email. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
FSN is an independent source of news for TV, radio and digital networks worldwide. You can find more of our minute-by-minute updates on Twitter. Follow us there at Feature Story. And we have a wealth of audio and video stories from our global news bureaus on Facebook. You can find us there by following Feature Story News. Stay tuned for further updates right here. But for now, that's the latest Feature Story News. William Denzelo reporting.
Calling it the most effective means to reaching one's full earning potential. A new report issued by the Employee Benefit Research Institute this week found that violently slamming one's supervisor against a wall and shouting, "Cash, I need more cash," is still the leading tactic for securing a raise amongst American workers.
We found that employees have the most success negotiating their salaries when they stride confidently into their supervisor's office, manhandle them like a rag doll, and demand more money right now.
Experts confirmed that the majority of employees who managed to increase their salaries maintained direct eye contact with their supervisors while reiterating that they were not f***ing around, emphasizing their position with phrases such as, "Give me the money now," and "I said more cash, old man." The Onion sat down with Kevin Simmons, who recently applied these methods in negotiating a competitive bump in his annual salary.
So the other day I walked right into his office, grabbed his throat with my hand, and told him straight up, "Start paying me more f***ing money today." And I grabbed $100 out of his wallet and told him that was a good start.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live. It's Free Talk Live, and you can join us. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. We are talking about the worldwide demonstrations that happened in cities all across the planet today. If you were at one of them and you want to tell us how things went, where you were, you're welcome to join the show. With you in the studio tonight, it's me, Ian.
Peakless Mountaineer.
Me, Captain.
We'll tell you more about the worldwide demonstration just because I'm impressed with how they organized this. Very decentralized, very principled, very libertarian, very voluntarist, anarchist-sounding event.
Yes.
and also happening all over the place. So we'll tell you more about that coming up here. Plus, I've got a very disturbing video that I want to share with you guys. It is one of the worst, I think, that I've seen over the last year or so. And we'll talk about that coming up. But also on the way here in a little bit, Peakless Mountaineer, you've got some statistics you wanted to share with us regarding the vaccine. That's coming up. First, we go to Reverend Ratspeed. He's on the line, actually calling on our SIP line, which we don't talk a lot about, but it is there. You can go to sip.freetalklive.com.
Ratspeed's got skills.
You can go to,
Hello.
it doesn't take
Can you
that many
hear me?
skills. Yeah, we got you, man. It's sip.freetalklive.com. You can go there and you can get the step-by-step instructions. The only skill you really need is to be able to follow instructions to make this work.
This is a thing that's lacking in society today.
It's not very hard to do. Ratspeed, go ahead.
Hi, yes, yeah, it did take a little bit of time for me to get it set up, but once I did, great. Anyway, reason why I'm calling up is because I have some statistics that I created on my own using a spreadsheet based off of CDC numbers, in other words, official numbers. The reason why I use CDC numbers is because for anyone who wants to argue against these numbers, they would have to argue with what the CDC says, okay? So, I figured out two different numbers. The yearly percentage of population of the United States that, using current available numbers, die from COVID, and on top of that, I found out the yearly percentage of population, roughly estimated, of the United States population that dies from the flu. Because it would finally settle that age-old question, well, is COVID like the flu, and how much worse is it?
Now, just to be clear, that you must have used numbers regarding the flu from before 2020 because the flu disappeared in 2020,
yes.
didn't it?
Yes, exactly.
Quote,
What
unquote?
I got was a 10-year average from 2010 to 2020.
Got it.
So, yeah. So I found out, okay, so here's what I did. I took the average number of people from the last 1.75 years of people that have died from COVID or have been blamed on COVID, and that is 0.09% of the population. 0.09% of the population of the United States, according to the numbers, die yearly from COVID, which is equivalent to just over 300,000 people a year. Now, I said, okay, let's find out what the flu's like.
And sorry, did you say this was global or U.S.? I'm sorry.
Just U.S. This is CDC, so this is U.S. numbers.
Got it.
Official U.S. numbers put out by the CDC. Now, to find out the flu was actually the hard part because the flu is not counted in the same way that COVID is.
Right.
Not only do they not throw all the numbers at it like they do with COVID, they're much more conservative with their estimates based off of other various factors, but they only figure it out by season, which I found out was roughly the beginning of October to the end of May. The next 3 or 4 remaining months in between there, they don't count in their yearly estimates. So I had to find the missing remainder. I found a post by a former life insurance executive that he said in 2018, based off of the full over estimates that they had, the average amount of people that die daily from the flu is 153. Once I had that number, I went ahead and applied that times 365, and that gave me, for the year 2018, it gave me 55,845 people. The CDC numbers for that year for the flu season was 34,000. So then I went ahead and found the difference. So the off-season deaths were 21,845. From there, I was able to find the difference between those two. In other words, what makes up for the lack of it, of the percentage, and that is 0.6425. From there, all I had to do was apply that to all of the rest of the 10-year average, assuming that the average amount had the same differential between on-season and off-season deaths, and that gave me the entire yearly estimates, and from there I was able to also derive the monthly estimates.
Okay.
So
what'd you figure out?
It varied from year to year because, some years were worse off than others. But the average number of people over that 10-year average that from this estimate, it's very rough, okay? But it is 58,966 people a year on average die from the flu. So then I was able to find out the yearly percentage, which is 0.02% of the population.
Okay, so you're saying COVID is several times more deadly.
Yeah, yearly percentage of population according to the current numbers, and that's the way that they handle the COVID estimations right now, which is not nearly as conservative as how they handle the flu, is 0.09%.
Now, of course, we've also seen that the government numbers are fudged on COVID because they report all kinds of people dying who, quote unquote, died of COVID, who may have died of all manner of comorbidity issues, but they mark them down as COVID. So was it really from COVID? We don't really know.
Yeah, that's So that's why I use the official numbers, because from there people can derive their own estimations. So there is a 0.07% difference between the flu and COVID. In other words, yeah, there are 300,000 on average for COVID and 58,000 on average from the flu, but that kind of gives you a relative estimate. Now, if it turns out that if someone out there listening has more information about the daily deaths for the flu, I can pop that into my calculator and adjust the numbers that I came up with.
Well, how many people die from the flu are reported? Because there's a lot of reports of COVID, right? Like everybody going to the hospital is getting tested for COVID. Everybody dying from something is being tested for COVID. So the COVID numbers are definitely highly, if not over-reported. Whereas the flu, if you get sick and you die, I mean, maybe they're going to know you have the flu. Maybe they're not going to know you had the flu.
That's exactly what I was mentioning. On the CDC, when there was a page that talked about how they derive their estimates for their seasonal, what they call the burden. They don't call it the death toll. They call it the burden.
Of course.
The burden on hospitals and the burden on. So that's where I haven't done the work on this yet, but I would imagine that if I were to take some of those other things that they take into consideration to make a more conservative number for the flu, then the COVID, that's just a guess.
Yeah. Hey, Reverend, thank you for doing that work and all that kind of thing. And I'm going to say this thing, I don't want you to be offended by it, but as a person who likes facts and figures and statistics and evidence and that kind of thing, I would like to ask listeners out there if there's anybody that can corroborate your findings. Somebody else who has done an exercise like this. If you're out there, please give us a call, 603-283-6160.
I went ahead on social.freetalklive.com the other day. I went ahead and put the screenshot of the final totals that I got, but I'm going to go ahead and post a screenshot of my spreadsheet, the whole spreadsheet right now. And if anyone wants to have the numbers, they can hit me up somewhere. I'm on Element sometimes.
What's your social.freetalklive.com handle for people that might want to follow you
it's
there?
Ratspeed.
At Ratspeed.
Ratspeed.
Thanks, Ratspeed, for the call tonight. Appreciate it. And check him out. The social media site that we've got is pretty sweet. It is a what they call Mastodon server, which means we're running the server. There's no Twitter or Facebook or some big tech corporation that is in charge. They cannot pull you offline for an opinion that they don't like because they're not in charge. So you can go to social.freetalklive.com. Ratspeed's one of those folks that's posting over there. Captain, you've got a fairly active account there. I'm there as well. You can go to social.freetalklive.com. Get signed up there. It's very much like Twitter. So the folks who made Mastodon essentially knocked off all the Twitter features, and it's free. So head on over and create your account there and start posting on a more free service for your opinions. It's social.freetalklive.com, and you can check out Ratspeed's account there. He's at Ratspeed. All right, and that's one word. The number 603-283-6160. Since we're talking statistics, let's get into those vaccination numbers. Peakless Mountaineer has those coming up. This is Free Talk Live.
Breaking weather news. Belize is sunny and around 82 degrees every day this week.
What's the forecast for your life? If current politics and economic prospects are cramping your freedom, escape to the tropics. ECI Development has affordable second homes for you to own or rent in Belize and other tropical countries. Places with stable governments and growing economies. Secure your freedom now. To find out more, send an email to ftl@ecidevelopment.com.
when a lunar observatory detects a radio broadcast originating from Proxima Centauri, the nations of Earth discover their first contact with an alien race may also be their last. With the Proximans facing an extinction-level disaster, Earth must choose between sending a ship on a multi-year journey or allowing nature to take its course. Saving Proxima, a hard science fiction thriller by Travis S. Taylor and Les Johnson from BaneBooks.com.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you're helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. That's Bitcoin.com.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
The Free State Project has reached its goal of 20,000 liberty lovers who've pledged to move to New Hampshire and get active to achieve liberty in our lifetime. Perhaps you're trying to figure out what part of New Hampshire should be your destination. If so, consider Keene. You'll find more than 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com. Keene is famous for its historic, publicity-generating activism, as well as being the liberty media capital of the world. It's home to freekeene.com, New Hampshire's destination for liberty activism, news, and opinion. For years, we've been compiling over 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com, where you'll learn about some of what's happening here and what makes Keene a great place to live. If you love liberty, you'll probably enjoy anywhere you end up in the Shire. But do your due diligence first. Please visit move.freekeene.com for the full list of over 150 reasons to move to Keene. That's move.freekeene.com. Some of you asked, and now we've delivered. LRN.FM's live Keene, New Hampshire studio shows are now streamed in HD on Twitch. Visit our channel at twitch.lrn.fm and give it a follow. If you have Amazon Prime, you get one free subscription on Twitch. If you use it on our channel, Twitch will give LRN.FM a monthly piece of your Prime subscription cost. So please watch, follow, share, and subscribe to twitch.lrn.fm. That's twitch.lrn.fm. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
This is Free Talk Live. You can join us here. The number is 603-283-6160. Coming up, Peakless Mountaineer will be sharing us some, well, maybe shocking for you, numbers about the vaccine and death rates, which the mainstream media is definitely not going to tell you about. We'll tell you about that.
They don't care about death rates. They only care about cases.
Well, they only care about death rates from COVID. Death rates from the vaccine, they don't care about that.
Yeah. Safe and effective.
Yeah, so we'll tell you about that.
Safe and effective.
603-283-6160. Thanks to Bitcoin.com for being a longtime sponsor here on Free Talk Live. Look, if you're interested in getting into cryptocurrency, you're still not too late. You know, you may feel like you've missed the boat or missed the train on this. No, we can't make any predictions as far as what the prices are going to do, but you can look for the price history yourself of Bitcoin, and you can see that over the last dozen years, it's trended upwards.
I think it's still way early times.
So, yeah, it's a good chance that this is going to continue on up, and there's a darn good chance we're always going to have cryptocurrency with us for the remainder of our lifespans, and probably beyond that. So it would behoove you to learn the basics about this new technology if you haven't done so, and Bitcoin.com can help you with that. Just click Get Started at the top of the page, and they'll tell you about Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash there at Bitcoin.com. You can also click on their news headlines over at news.bitcoin.com and follow the latest news information from the world of cryptocurrency over at news.bitcoin.com. We're going to go to your phone calls right out here. We got David in New Mexico. You're on Free Talk Live. Go ahead, David.
Yeah, continuing to expose court corruption, how they work. So let me give you a little scenario vignette, and you can tell me what you think of this. So in the context of child custody, a tactic was used to sue me for me to be sued by my children's mother and the dude that she moved in with and then married a year later. They wanted to terminate my parental rights and adopt my children to him because obviously that would be more convenient. And in Albuquerque, New Mexico, Second Judicial District Court, Judge John J. initially Judge M. Monica Zamora, because it's important we expose these people. She decided that they proved their case, and she terminated my parental rights to my own children. Based on their argument was that, one, I had not seen my children in more than 6 months or whatever the rule was, and two, I had not paid any child support, and that met the standard. Let's ignore the fact that I have a court order that said that you can't see your kids right now, buddy, and two, you don't have to pay any child support, buddy. I had a court order saying that, and then they used that very court order against me.
Wow.
And so what I did is I appealed Judge M. Monica Zamora to the New Mexico Court of Appeals, where a 3-judge panel, Wexler, Bustamante, and Kennedy writing, wrote the decision in my favor, saying, and I'm paraphrasing here, even though they are very succinct themselves in their own hand, Judge Roderick Kennedy wrote that, hey, Judge M. Monica Zamora, the plaintiffs, the petitioners, did not prove their case. And further, I'm sorry, let me restate that. Judge M. Monica Zamora, you wrongly applied the burden of proof. You put the burden of proof on Mr. Olson when the burden of proof is on the petitioning parties. And they went
But you
on
didn't get
to
your kids
add-
back after this.
That's coming. Listen to this. The Judge Roderick Kennedy went on to add, Judge M. Monica Zamora, further, not only did you misapply the burden of proof, which is rather a big deal, but even if you had correctly applied the burden of proof, the plaintiffs did not prove their case. So double whammy. Then what they said is we remand this to the Children's Court, to Judge John J. Romero Jr. to take appropriate action. Now, given those facts, what do you think appropriate action might be?
That would be to grant you access to your kids.
Okay, now do you think that happened?
No, in fact, I know it didn't, because you've been calling about this for quite a long time, and it's been more than I think a decade since you've seen your kids, right? How long's it been now?
I last saw them. I said goodbye to them, not knowing I would never see them again on July 2nd of 2007.
Wow. Okay, that's roughly 14 years ago.
Right, and so. I just wanted to share some of those facts, because those are indeed facts which can be read right here in the documents that I have that have come from the courts that I have cited, and that's what it says. Should
and you're
anybody
still
doubt me.
going to court. You're still embroiled in this continuing fight, right? Like, this is still ongoing.
Yeah, it's ongoing, and the obvious tactic is to continue to throw obstacles in the way of a person like myself until you either give up or the children become adults.
Yeah. And how many years are you away from that happening at this point?
It depends on which kid. There's 2 kids, so 2 and 3 years.
Wow.
That sucks,
It's
man.
depressing.
I hate family court. Your situation, I'd like to say, people will who've
not
only
unique.
only heard your story will be, oh well, that's an edge case. No, it's not. This kind of crap happens all the time in family court. Family court is an aberration. It shouldn't even exist. Even there are less rules for family court than there are for actual regular court.
Thank you, David.
So much for speedy trial, huh?
Yeah, thanks for the call tonight, David. I appreciate it and wish you the best. And of course, the bad news is, that those kids are being brainwashed by the mom. Yeah. She's probably telling them, your dad hates you. He doesn't ever want to see you again. All the lies, right? Because they've been lying to the courts. They've been misleading and working with these corrupt bureaucrats the whole time. They're misleading the kids as well. So when they turn 18, they probably still think that he doesn't want to see him or whatever BS.
And nothing should scare parents more, or potential parents even, than an institution based on violence and coercion having control of children. Because that's literally what they do. They step in when nobody has asked them to, frequently, and they remove children from parents, from their homes, whether they be actual parents, grandparents, foster parents, step-parents. They do this frequently. It is a frequent occurrence.
Yeah, speaking of children, that is the subject of this video that is the most disturbing video I have yet seen in this whole COVID situation. And I want to play it for you guys in case you haven't seen it and get your reactions on the air coming up here in a little bit. But Peakless Mountaineer, you had some statistics. We were just talking with Ratspeed about the COVID death numbers and how those are inflated. What are we seeing on the numbers that you pulled up about the vaccines and how many people are dying from the vaccines? Because you remember the whole pitch here is if it just saves one life. Well, what about the people who died from taking the vaccine? No one cares about those folks, right? Except for their family members that are shocked that somebody's dying from these things.
Government doesn't care. Media doesn't care.
No. So what's going on?
Well, so this is all about the Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System.
Which is a voluntary reporting system. Is that correct?
Yep.
So therefore, these numbers would be underrepresented. These would be conservative numbers.
Yep, and this is VAERSanalysis.info is where this is coming from, and I was shocked. I knew this was bad, but I had no idea it was this bad.
And it's not even, it's worse than what it seems to be, right? Because these aren't, this is just voluntary reported numbers, so it could be multiple times what you're going to tell us about coming up here in moments. 603-283-6160. We got that and more. Your calls and thoughts welcome about what you want. It's Free Talk Live.
If you want to bring more liberty into your community, there's something you should see. Intercoin, the movement you might want to join. If you like Bitcoin, break through. It's true. It's truly something new. If you'd like to see real prosperity, start your own currency, boost the economy. Intercoin, the movement you might want to join. If you like Bitcoin, its impact's hard to overstate, results you can appreciate. If you're tired of relying on the state, want to make your own community great, homelessness and hunger to eliminate, let the wealth accumulate. Don't wait for the growth rate to accelerate. Go to intercoin.org and get the coins for yourself.
From Feature Story News in New York, I'm William Denzelo with the Week in Review. The United States this week has defended its new military alliance with Australia and the United Kingdom, following an international diplomatic backlash. The three-way AUKUS agreement will allow Australia to build nuclear-powered submarines using US and UK technology. But the security alliance has angered China, Beijing seeing it as an effort to counter its claims in the South China Sea and cause problems with US ally France. Nick Harper reports from Washington.
France felt particularly cold-shouldered, losing out on a $66 billion deal to build Australia's submarines. US Secretary of State Anthony Blinken tried to calm the waters of international diplomacy.
There is no regional divide separating the interests of our Atlantic and our Pacific partners. This partnership with Australia and the United Kingdom is a signal that we're committed to working with our allies and partners, including in Europe.
The White House says France was warned about the alliance before it was announced. Despite their feelings of betrayal, say the pact will help to counter China's dominance in the Indo-Pacific region.
US Secretary of State Antony Blinken faced a grilling on Capitol Hill this week for the Biden administration's handling of the withdrawal from Afghanistan. Chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, Senator Bob Menendez, also threatened to subpoena Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin if he doesn't agree to testify. Kate Fisher reports from the US Capitol.
The sharp rebuke from the fellow Democrat came as Secretary of State Antony Blinken faced a second day of questioning by lawmakers over the chaotic exit from Afghanistan.
While we understand and appreciate the security issues that were at play, it's confounding that such a chaotic process arose to begin with.
But Mr. Blinken strongly defended President Joe Biden's decision to end America's 20-year war and the administration's handling of the evacuation. He said no one in the US government predicted the Afghan security forces would surrender to the Taliban so quickly.
And the United Nations is warning Earth is on a catastrophic pathway, with global temperatures poised to rise 2.7 degrees Celsius by the end of the century. That's according to a new report from the UN Climate Agency. Rachel Silverman has more.
The report shows emissions of planet-warming gases are poised to grow by 16% during this decade compared with 2010 levels, even though the latest scientific research indicates they need to decrease by at least a quarter by 2030 to avert the worst impacts of global warming. That level of warming is likely to worsen extreme wildfires, droughts, and floods, to increase the frequency of deadly heat waves, and to threaten coastal cities with rising sea levels.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Do you appreciate what we do? Help us advertise, market, and promote for just $5 a month at amp.freetalklive.com.
Yep, it's Free Talk Live. You can join us here. The number is 603-283-6160. Live Saturday episode of Free Talk Live with Ian,
Victimless Mountaineer,
and me, Captain.
603-283-6160. We've been talking about some of the massive protests, and some not so massive. But still, people getting out into the streets, expressing themselves at what was called the Worldwide Demonstration. That led to a discussion of some statistics. One of our callers, Ratspeed, talking about the COVID deaths versus the flu deaths, which, by the way, the flu deaths seemed to disappear last year.
Where did it go?
I don't know how that happens unless they're counting all the flu people as COVID.
I got it! The flu caught the COVID!
And they all the flu died from COVID.
Yeah, right. And now, Picos Mountaineer, you've got some numbers about this, what was it, VAERS? Is that
it? Yeah, VAERS.
And that's a voluntary reporting system for vaccine.
Yep. Stands for Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System.
So if somebody dies or has some other serious issue, I presume, with a vaccine, they can report it to this system. And I don't know, is there verification? Do we know if there's any
kind of... It's filtered through the CDC and the FDA.
Okay,
so
this
the
is
reports
some
have
sort
to
of
be sent
official thing.
To one of those two agencies.
Yeah, this is very much an official set of numbers.
Okay. And you're looking at number of people, according to VAERS, who have died from the COVID vaccine specifically. Is that correct?
Well, and it doesn't just track deaths. It's adverse reactions, life-threatening events, hospitalizations, deaths, as we say, the number of permanent disabilities after the vaccination.
Oof, okay.
Number of office visits, emergency room visits, and birth defects.
Got it. And this is all rolled into one number?
No, these are
They're separate categories.
All separate categories.
Okay, got it.
So I believe all of the adverse reactions is the total of all of the other categories here.
Got it.
So, and what we've got here is the this particular site at vaersanalysis.info is comparing the COVID-19 vaccines from December of 2020 to the present. Compared to all other vaccines since the beginning of the VAERS from 1990 to the present.
Okay. It's a long history.
So going just first hard bit of data. The COVID vaccine's total number of adverse reactions, 701,561.
And this is just the U.S.?
No, this is worldwide.
Oh, really?
But
Yeah.
COVID specific.
Yeah, COVID specific.
Oh,
now
okay.
they do actually track just the U.S. numbers here. In just the U.S., the COVID vaccine total number of adverse reactions is 559,462.
Now, that's adverse reactions. That includes issues that were non-deadly, obviously, but still, you're going to now compare that same category to the entire history of this system.
Of every other vaccine, every adverse
Measles,
reaction
mumps,
that's been
rubella,
reported.
you name it, flu vaccines, all that stuff.
Yeah, and this is a great site. They actually break it down into all of those different ones, and they have these lovely bar charts that show, okay, it's this many mumps, this many with the rubella, this many with the MMR, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And so total of COVID worldwide, as far as reported by this, COVID was 701,000. Total everything else, 820,671.
Hold on, for 30 years?
Yeah. Yep.
So you're saying that in 1 year, roughly, I mean, it hasn't even really been a year yet, but 9 months. In 9 months, there's over 700,000 adverse reactions from COVID vaccines, and in 30 years, from 1990, let's say 30 years, there's only 800 and change thousand?
Yeah.
That's wow, that is stunning.
That is shocking.
That's amazing.
So in just America, the COVID total number 559,462, and every other one 719,973.
Now, I don't want to minimize the other adverse reactions because obviously if you get blood clots and you get crippled in some way, I mean, this is not fun. It could be a life-altering event in a very negative manner, taking this vaccine. I don't want to minimize the people that have had that. But can you pull up the deaths specifically?
Oh, yeah.
Do you have that at hand?
Would you like to hear the total or just U.S. first?
Let's, Captain, what do you think? U.S.?
Sure.
Yeah, let's do
All
U.S.
right, let's go with U.S.
I mean, the difference seemed to be approximately the same between the world total versus the U.S. total. So I think we'll get meaningful information.
All right, so total deaths. I'll start with total deaths from all other vaccines combined from
in 30
1990,
years. Okay.
to the present.
Okay.
5,112.
Wow. Okay.
And,
not very many.
And from COVID, 6,756.
So more deaths.
More deaths from this single vaccine than every vaccine from the beginning of this system to the present combined.
Did you hear that there was an FDA conference that they had? There's video of this. It's an 8-hour-long video, but at like 4 hours and 20 minutes into this video, which strange timing, there's a doctor who speaks, and I believe he's a doctor. Anyway, it's like the public comment section, and he shows the numbers, shows slides showing that more people have died from the vaccine, who took the vaccine, than would have died from COVID. Basically.
I've seen that, yes, where like if you'd have just allowed Mother Nature to do the work and recovered from it,
they'd have survived it.
But I want to make sure that I'm hearing what you're saying properly, Peakless Mountaineer, because if I am hearing what you're saying properly, then the conclusion that I draw in my head is the COVID vaccines, right? Because there's 3 different flavors. Are the deadliest vaccine ever.
Yeah.
At least in the last 30 years.
By a huge margin.
Yeah, by orders of magnitude, because we only have less than 1 year's worth of data on the COVID vaccine versus 30-ish years of data on all of the other vaccines combined.
Right.
Wow.
That is shocking.
It is.
My flabber is gasted.
Yeah.
So basically, this thing is a high-risk event for you to take this vaccine.
And the thing is, like, they talk about this thing like, what, we already require children to have, these vaccines in order to get to in order to get into school. I mean, this really isn't that different. Oh, it really, really is.
This is experimental technology.
That's a big statement. More people have died from the COVID vaccines in less than a year than have died from all other vaccines in the last 30.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's a big statement.
It is. It's enormous. And I mean, I've gone through the rest of these numbers, and it all pretty much tracks just like that. Some of it is kind of impressive, like emergency room visits. Total, for all of the others for the last 30 years, it was office visits. Office visits.
People who went to their doctor saying, hey, doc, something feels wrong.
Yeah, exactly. For the last 30 years in America.
After a vaccine.
Yep, after a vaccine, 41,674. And for COVID, 103,894. So more than double. More than twice as often, people are going, something doesn't feel right. I need to see my doctor.
How, but there's like hundreds of thousands of issues. I mean, you said it was like 500,000 plus adverse incidents.
Yep.
So are they not including people going to the hospital as a office visit? This is just them going to their specific doctor?
So anything that they specifically track back to the vaccine itself goes in the adverse reaction. So if it makes anything worse, if they're already in the hospital, if they're already seeing their doctor regularly, and they find out that this has put this number off or what have you, then yeah.
What was the website where people can explore this for themselves?
Yeah, this is at vaersanalysis.info.
vaersanalysis.info. Check that out. There's, I imagine, a wealth of information.
You might have to look around to find this. Of course, we are posting it on our social media.
And as shocking as those numbers were, remember, this is a voluntary reporting system, so the actual numbers could be higher than that. Likely are higher than that. 603-283-6160. But hey, trust the government. They care about you.
Safe and effective.
More coming up.
This is Michael Dean from the Freedom Fiends. I've run websites since 1996 and have used over a dozen web hosts in that time. AgristHosting.com is the only one that hasn't broken my heart. Agrist Hosting's uptime and service is stellar, and their DDoS mitigation is the best I've seen. That's important because if you tell the truth in this world, you'll ruffle feathers. And some people will try dirty tricks to silence your voice. No matter what the haters hit us with, Agrist Hosting keeps our websites online. If you have a mission-critical commercial presence or a world-changing activism site, you cannot tolerate any skullduggery. So go with AgristHosting.com. Have a WordPress or blog site, but you're not satisfied with performance or uptime? Or just want raw hosting? Want to pay with Bitcoin? Agrist Hosting specializes in high-performance hosting with personalized service. Go to agristhosting.com and click on the button that says Get Hosted. That's agristhosting.com.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
We have some good news. The indictments against Ross Ulbricht in the District of Maryland were dismissed with prejudice, meaning they can never be refiled. This is especially good because those indictments contain the only charge ever made that Ross engaged in murder for hire. This was a serious allegation that Ross Ulbricht denies. It was never prosecuted or ruled on by a jury, but was trumpeted by the federal government and the media as if it were proven fact. The Maryland court held these indictments for almost 5 years, poisoning Ross's case and leaving him under a cloud of unproven allegations. As explained in Ross's appeal to the Supreme Court, the fact that the judge used these allegations to give Ross a draconian sentence of double life without parole violated his Sixth Amendment right to a jury trial. Judges are required to issue sentences based on convictions decided by a jury, not unproven allegations never even charged at trial. Although this is a positive development, the dropped indictment will not set Ross free. Now, a presidential pardon is Ross's only hope of freedom. Sign the petition at freeross.org. freeross.org.
The LRN.FM social media channels have been revamped. We've eliminated Facebook and focused on other platforms like Twitter and Mastodon, the decentralized alternative to Twitter. On our accounts, you'll find posts from multiple LRN.FM show hosts together in one place. Follow us on Twitter at twitter.lrn.fm, or better yet, move to the decentralized Mastodon social media platform at toot.lrn.fm, toot.lrn.fm. I think you'll like it.
My name is Jacob Hornberger. I'm president of the Future of Freedom Foundation, which Congressman Ron Paul awarded for having an outstanding freedom website. Write us at fff@fff.org, and we'll send you a free 3-month subscription to our monthly journal of libertarian essays and our booklet, Economic Liberty in the Constitution, which George Mason University economics professor Walter Williams praised in a recent column. That's fff@fff.org.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. Of course, you can bring up what you want here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Coming up, the Pentagon has admitted to murder again. And the captain will share that on the way here in a little bit. But first, I want to play this video for you guys.
Yeah.
And I'll put it on the monitor that you can see, Captain. And we're going to have to describe it for...
You said see, Captain.
Yeah. We're going to have to describe it for our listeners out there as it is happening. Because it is a very visual video. And, it's normally it's bad radio to play a video on the air that isn't particularly audio focused. But this is just so... shocking. It is so horrifying. We've talked about the restrictions placed. You just finished talking about the deaths, right? Like the worst possible things happening to people receiving the vaccine. And there's no doubt that's horrible, and people, having their lives destroyed by this experimental medication. But the other thing that this whole COVID situation has destroyed, besides freedoms, which we talked about, previously in the protests and all that, that have been going on today with a worldwide demonstration. The other thing it's destroyed is the basic level of humanity of being able to see another person's face.
Yeah.
And we talked about this last year quite a bit when the mask mandate started to come into place. Like, what is happening to these children? This is one of my viewpoints. It's like, I see these kids around town.
And this is, we talked briefly about, it's early studies, but this is warping their development.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, just think of the effect that it has on, us, right? I'm an older dude. I'm a little bit deaf from being a musician for a couple of decades. And so, when I'm at, the grocery store, the Home Depot, whatever, I kind of sort of lip read a little bit, right? It makes a difference. And when the masks came out, all of a sudden I thought myself, yeah, what are you trying to say?
Yeah, plus then they put the plexiglass up.
And that made
the
it worse.
And it's like, you gotta be kidding me. But it's one thing to be an adult who's had, for our whole lives, the ability up until last year to see another person's facial expressions, to understand what, they could be revealing things about what they're thinking in their face, and just those subtle expressions that make human contact more meaningful. We've at least had that for our whole lives.
Yeah.
A child born 2 years ago or whatever has had the majority of their life now behind a mask, seeing other human beings.
I can't even imagine
behind a mask,
the impact that has.
And it's easy to think about how destructive and how awful that is. But this video that was posted on, let me get this lady, give her credit here. Science Mom is sort of the original. I don't think she's the one who recorded it, but she got this video and posted it on her Twitter. It's at 456trainmama, Science Mom on Twitter. It is of a child who I'm going to guess is preschool age. He's on like a preschool looking carpet. He seems very, very young. And this little boy does not want to wear this mask that this staff at this preschool is trying to do everything they can to force him to do this. And here it is.
Put your mask on.
Takes it off. So they put it on.
You gotta wear it on, honey.
And they put it back on. This goes on for a minute. So there's a woman leaning over him, in this video. He's sitting on the floor. He had the mask on. She puts it on him. Or she puts it on him. He immediately takes it off. This clearly is a natural reaction. This little boy does not want this thing covering up his mouth. You try to put an outfit on a dog, they take that thing off most of the time, right? They do not want that on most dogs. This child does not want this mask on.
Right there. Yay, Mason! Yay!
And they're trying to do this fake ass, oh, you're such a good little boy. Yeah, just keep that mask on. No, he's taking the mask off every single time. He's verbally protesting. He's physically protesting. So he's removed it at least 3 times so far. She puts it back on. He takes it off immediately. She grabs it again, puts it over his face accidentally, just snaps the mask on this little boy's face. Oh, whoop. Then she moves it down again, and he pulls it down immediately before she's even done.
I see you. Keep your mask on. Put your mask back on.
So the woman, the voice is the woman behind the camera, and then there's 2 women here doing everything they can to make this little boy compliant, and he is not having it.
What are you looking at? Come on, keep it on your face. You gotta keep it on your face so we go outside. There you go.
This is one of the hardest
she's
videos.
Holding his hand down so he
to
can't,
force him. Yeah.
So he can't pull it from his face.
Yep. You got to keep the mask on, they say. Why? Why does he have to keep the mask on? What is this obedience all about? There's not a bunch of kids sitting around him or anything like that.
Nope.
And he pulls it off.
This is child abuse.
She puts it back on. He pulls it back off.
We're watching child abuse.
Yeah,
is what
that's
we're
what I consider this. It's absolutely horrifying. And she puts it back on him again.
Why would you videotape
It's going to keep you safe, she says.
That's a great question. Why would you videotape this?
You want to document that you're doing this?
Yeah, I found myself asking that question as well. Maybe they wanted to send it to the mother to show how bad
That's the only thing I can think
her
of
child is being.
Yeah.
Yay, Mason! Yay!
And as she's saying, yay, Mason, he pulls it off again. Yeah. And that's the end of the 1:20 video.
I mean, kudos to the kid for, taking it off every time. It's like, first of all,
future human being of America there.
First of all, no risk. 0 risk.
To this kid, you mean?
Yeah. COVID poses 0 risk.
It'll keep you safe, Mason. It'll keep you safe, they said.
Not in any sort of risk category whatsoever. Mm-hmm. Second of all, it is unnatural. It's completely unnatural.
You can tell. It's crystal clear how wrong this is.
It is anti-natural. It is anti-human. It is anti-intelligence. And it is just ugly.
And third, I assume this is a public school where this happened.
No, this looks like a preschool to me.
Oh, okay.
Oh, no, in fact, it does say here, daycare. So the what you can't read it from there, but at the top of the screen, there's like the text that the mother sort of attached to this post when she posted it online, whoever she was. It doesn't show her name. It says, "This is my poor kid at daycare today so I can work. Hashtag breaks my heart. Hashtag Governor Hochul." I believe that is the new governor in New York, the lieutenant governor that took over.
Yeah.
And I can't read the rest of what that says. But lady, what are you doing?
You get your kid the hell out of there.
Seriously.
I mean, thanks for posting this online so we can all see the horrors that these kids are likely going through, because this is the thing.
Your hands are not clean, lady.
No, you need to get your kid out of this school. But really, the question is, how many times a day is something like this happening in daycares and
across the globe,
across the United States? How indicative of reality, how common is this situation? I suspect this is not a one-off incident. These ladies probably do this in just this one school with multiple of their victims. Mm-hmm. And this is probably going on in a lot of places. And what do they think's going to happen? Are they worried that somebody's going to come in and issue them a ticket? I mean, or is it that they totally buy, they totally buy this and they're going to go, they're going along with this?
Obviously, they're heavily brainwashed, and they think they're doing the right thing for this particular
They think they're
child.
helping this child.
Yes,
I mean, that is so insane. How you could look at his reactions in this situation. Look, I don't like kids, right? Like, I don't want anything to do with them. I got a vasectomy at age 23, but it's crystal clear how wrong what they're doing to this child is. This is
and that's
sick.
The worst part of, I'll call it this tyranny, because it's being done under the disguise of what is right.
Fear is love.
This is not
Fear
right.
is love in the modern Orwellian nightmare.
It is. It's horrendous.
And I can see you're tearing up over this over there, Peakless Mountaineer. This is one of the hardest videos I've watched in the last 18 months. This is sick. And if you love your kids, figure something out. Look, I understand you're in New York, so it's probably hard to find a daycare center that doesn't, gobble the government and fillet the government and do everything the government wants them to do. I get that. Look, there's got to still be some parents out there that give
a to take your own face away. That is a horror. That is a horror to do that to children.
Yeah.
To take your face away from them so they don't even get to know you. They don't get to learn. They don't get to be human. But then you take their face from them.
And everyone else's.
And think of all of the legislation around child warnings for things like toys and plastic bags and all that kind of stuff. Like, don't put this near children. Don't put it over their head and all this kind of thing, right? And now here you are doing exactly that.
Suffocating your child.
You're putting something on their face. You're covering their breathing holes. You're affecting their life.
And remember, when somebody who is supposedly taking care of you is trying to show that they care about you, they smile. Right? Like in a situation like a preschool, these women, they're wearing the mask. So imagine it from the kid's perspective. These horrible harridans that are coming at him only with their eyes and manhandling him and grabbing him and forcing this thing on him. I mean, that is terrifying. There's more coming up.
Breaking weather news. Belize is sunny and around 82 degrees every day this week.
What's the forecast for your life? If current politics and economic prospects are cramping your freedom, escape to the tropics. ECI Development has affordable second homes for you to own or rent in Belize and other tropical countries. Places with stable governments and growing economies. Secure your freedom now. To find out more, send an email to ftl@ecidevelopment.com.
Brute force, intransigent defiance, adamantine will. These are the hallmarks of the AI tank. These gigantic machines have the firepower of an army, but they also have their own sense of honor and duty. When the world breakers arrive, battle will be joined, planets will shake, and war and peace will never be the same again. World Breakers. Stories from David Weber, Larry Correa, and more. Available August 3rd from BaneBooks.com.
Is oral health important to you? If you don't like your own teeth, fresh breath, or kissing people, then by all means stop listening. Several years ago, I met Jessica Armand, founder and CEO of My Magic Mud, and I became passionate about the product that she created and never want to live without it. It's clinically proven to whiten teeth, but I find it does much more. They want you to love My Magic Mud as much as I do, so they're giving you a money-back guarantee plus 20% off. Go to mymagicmud.com and use coupon code FTL20 at checkout. mymagicmud.com, FTL20.
There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in New York, I'm William Denzelo with the Week in Review. The United States this week has defended its new military alliance with Australia and the United Kingdom, following an international diplomatic backlash. The three-way AUKUS agreement will allow Australia to build nuclear-powered submarines using US and UK technology. But the security alliance has angered China, Beijing seeing it as an effort to counter its claims in the South China Sea and cause problems with US ally France. Nick Harper reports from Washington.
France felt particularly cold-shouldered, losing out on a $66 billion deal to build Australia's submarines. US Secretary of State Anthony Blinken tried to calm the waters of international diplomacy.
There is no regional divide separating the interests of our Atlantic and our Pacific partners. This partnership with Australia and the United Kingdom is a signal that we're committed to working with our allies and partners, including in Europe.
The White House says France was warned about the alliance before it was announced. Despite their feelings of betrayal, say the pact will help to counter China's dominance in the Indo-Pacific region.
US Secretary of State Antony Blinken faced a grilling on Capitol Hill this week for the Biden administration's handling of the withdrawal from Afghanistan. Chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, Senator Bob Menendez, also threatened to subpoena Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin if he doesn't agree to testify. Kate Fisher reports from the US Capitol.
The sharp rebuke from the fellow Democrat came as Secretary of State Antony Blinken faced a second day of questioning by lawmakers over the chaotic exit from Afghanistan.
While we understand and appreciate the security issues that were at play, it's confounding that such a chaotic process arose to begin with.
But Mr. Blinken strongly defended President Joe Biden's decision to end America's 20-year war and the administration's handling of the evacuation. He said no one in the US government predicted the Afghan security forces would surrender to the Taliban so quickly.
And the United Nations is warning Earth is on a catastrophic pathway, with global temperatures poised to rise 2.7 degrees Celsius by the end of the century. That's according to a new report from the UN Climate Agency. Rachel Silverman has more.
The report shows emissions of planet-warming gases are poised to grow by 16% during this decade compared with 2010 levels, even though the latest scientific research indicates they need to decrease by at least a quarter by 2030 to avert the worst impacts of global warming. That level of warming is likely to worsen extreme wildfires, droughts, and floods, to increase the frequency of deadly heat waves, and to threaten coastal cities with rising sea levels.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. Today remembering Sir Clive Sinclair, who has died at the age of 81. Back in the 1980s, his name was synonymous with the rapid development of the home and business computer industry. Sinclair Electronics was a British success story inspired by Clive Sinclair's invention of the pocket calculator in the early 1970s. Sir Clive went on to launch computer kits that enthusiasts could build in their own homes. The Spectrum, one of the first mass-market computers designed for an early generation of gamers. He left school at 17 to pursue his passion for electronics, and by 1984, launching the QL computer for businesses, he had a clear vision of where the industry was heading.
The computer business generally is a long way from being remotely near its end. It's an industry which is going to become the biggest industry in the world, bigger than cars, bigger than steel, bigger than shipbuilding. Most of those computers, not just in numbers, which is obvious, but also in money, will be personal computers.
How right he was. His business would be eventually outmaneuvered by larger competitors, including, of course, Apple and Microsoft. And his C5, an electric tricycle, was a major business flop. But he was an entrepreneur with unparalleled vision, even though, quite extraordinarily, he deliberately never used email. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
FSN is an independent source of news for TV, radio and digital networks worldwide. You can find more of our minute-by-minute updates on Twitter. Follow us there at Feature Story. And we have a wealth of audio and video stories from our global news bureaus on Facebook. You can find us there by following Feature Story News. Stay tuned for further updates right here. But for now, that's the latest Feature Story News. William Denzelo reporting.
An update now on a legal battle emerging around the Onion News Network's own Jode Kressbeckler. After the shocking story yesterday that a group of assailants attacked Congressman William Cummings, tied him to a horse and dragged him through a briar patch, some are now saying these statements from Mr. Kressbeckler last week may have incited the attack.
Bootlegging Congressman Cummings ought to be tied to a horse and dragged through a briar patch.
Mr. Kressbeckler's show is billed as an opinion and entertainment program.
Yes,
and
it
he
is.
even calls himself nothing but a caterwauling old badger, so
Right.
the claim that he would incite incite people to violence seems pretty far-fetched.
He displayed a map of Congressman Cummings' home in relation to the nearest briar patch, told his viewers where to purchase a, quote, good pulling horse, and used a life-size dummy of Congressman Cummings to demonstrate effective knot tying techniques.
Right. I think most reasonable people would see that as simply a ribald political satire.
Right.
Briar patch is obviously a metaphor for the prickly political atmosphere in Washington, and drag from a horse means something else.
Makes sense to me.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
Put your mask on. You gotta wear it on. No, you gotta keep it on. Put your mask on. There you go. Keep it right there.
This is what it sounds like when you try to take a child's face away from them. If you're just tuning in, disturbing video from New York State at a daycare where two daycare workers are forcing this child, who's probably no older than, I don't know, 4 years old, 3 years old.
Probably too young for preschool, which is why he's in daycare.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, is there a difference between daycare and preschool?
Yeah. Daycare comes before preschool.
Wow.
Yeah.
He is...
Or after, too. Or during, I should say. Because some kids, before they're old enough to go to school, they'll go to daycare during the working hours so parents can go to work. And then once the kids go to school, sometimes preschool isn't long enough in the day to cover the whole working day.
Oh.
So then the kids will go to preschool or kindergarten or whatever, and then for a portion of the day
daycare.
also go to daycare.
So it's a place to store a kid while, as the mom says here, she was at work. This is what was going on.
Like the institutionalization of children isn't limited to just the government.
Mm-hmm.
Because all families these days are double working families, as near as I can tell. There are very few like single income families where you got kids and one of them stays at home and is the main person to do the childcare and that kind of a stuff, because what happens is both parents will be working when they meet, and so then when they have kids, neither of them stops working.
Right.
And so now the only choice
and then
they
strangers
have,
raise their kids.
The only choice they have is to farm all that out to an institution.
Many of whom are totally obedient to the government, even if they aren't actually government institutions.
And regulated by the government and all that licensed. And
yeah, of course, this is New York State, so it's probably some of the worst of the worst as far as regulations on daycares and all of that. But nonetheless, most assuredly, this sort of a situation with these adults forcing a child to take his face away is very, very disturbing. Now, what's also disturbing are some of the comments on this particular tweet.
I bet they're ugly.
This was tweeted by a woman, Science Mom, at 456 Train Mama, and she's right when she says this is child abuse. But then she accuses the governor of being a child abuser. And look, these women in this video are the ones engaging in the abuse. There's no doubt the governor is a terrible human being because, well, they're a governor and they have to be just by definition because government. I mean, that's what
government is abuse, by the way.
It's horrible what they do to people. But the governor herself isn't there forcing the mask on this child. That's the two women that work at this daycare center that are forcing the mask on this child, telling him that it's going to keep him safe, which is a total lie.
The governor put a mask mandate, right?
I don't even know. Is there a mask mandate in New York State right now?
I don't know.
I have no idea. But there probably is one on daycares.
I would assume that's why she's saying it to the governor.
Maybe so.
And that's the thing. I'm sorry. Hands don't get clean that way. If I tell you to kill a guy and you do it, we're both guilty.
That's right.
So if the governor tells them that they have to put these masks on these children and they do it, you're both guilty.
And also, I'm going to say that this mom holds responsibility as well. Now, maybe this is the first time she knew of any sort of behavior like this. Maybe she thought they were letting the kids not wear masks, but I doubt it. I suspect she knows what the stupid rules are at this stupid daycare center, and she's still allowing her child to go there instead of coming up with something, instead of spending some of your creative juices talking to other parents and saying, hey, we're in the freedom cell together, networking with, unless you're the only person. And it could be true that you're the only person in New York City or wherever it is this was recorded. It's not clear where in New York State this happened. But wherever you are, if you're the only person, okay, well, maybe you should leave that place and go to a place where there's more people like you. But find the people who agree with you, and you know what? put your kids together, okay?
Yes.
Find somebody who's not at work and have them take care of your kids. I know that's probably a violation of the law in New York State, right? Like having a daycare without a license and all that, and they're probably just deathly afraid of getting arrested for doing something like that. But that would be a solution here. That would be a way to get your kids taken care of since you're not able to, and have them not having their humanity stolen from them by these masks.
Most people who do put their children into public schools and daycares, they all say the same thing. It's very robotic. It's very rote. It's very monotonous. It's, well, I have to work, so what choice do I have? Well, I got news for you. You got a lot of choice, actually, if you think about it. If you're creative about it.
Take some effort.
Put some time into it.
Child. Take some effort.
Last I checked, they don't just spring up on you like a stork.
Let's go to your calls. John is on the line in Delaware, listening to WDOV. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, I just heard that Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats, they just put up for a bill that if you are a child and you want to continue to take your mask off, they're going to put it through legislation this evening. They're doing it right now, actually. They're going to actually cut your hands off. So these kids, they better start wearing them masks, and they better keep them on, because Pelosi and them, they're going to come after you and take your hands.
I really hope that keeps being funny for a while, actually.
Hey, kid, do you need a hand?
Man. What, did you hear this? These people are doing emotional damage.
Serious.
Extreme emotional
damage. You guys
damage.
got to stop playing that, man. It was making me more and more mad the more and more you guys played it.
Oh, it's enraging to watch this video. I mean, like I've got my emotions under control pretty well, and I was pretty upset about this.
Holy smokes, man! These men, and imagine being that kid looking at these freaks.
I can't imagine that.
Mask on, coming at you with no emotion on their face,
right?
No facial expressions. I mean, that's how we communicate. That's what they want. They don't want us to communicate.
That's how you communicate that you are not harmful, that you are not intending harm, is you smile. That is something that we do without thinking as human beings. Whether it be being at a grocery store as a clerk, you smile at the customer to let them know that they're welcome. They should be comfortable there. Same thing at a daycare center. You smile at the kids because they're safe there. They should feel good there. And this takes all that away.
And even in a non-visual environment, they still teach you to smile. So, for example, if you work in like a large call center, or
smile while you're on the phone.
They teach you to smile while you're on the phone, because
smile and dial.
That still translates.
I've worked at a call center and smile and dial. That's the first thing they teach you. You're right about that.
Smiling is so intrinsic to...
Another thing I wanted to jump on real quick while we're on the topic with the mask mandates and all. Do you guys actually think that if you're promised at the workplace, hey, pal, all you need to do is get your vaccination and you don't have to wear the mask anymore. Nobody fall into that trap because it's a total setup. What happens is they go ahead and mandate the mask anyway. So after they bully you and talk you into going and getting this vaccination that you don't want to get in the first place, then they tell you on top of it, I'm sorry, sir, you're also going to have to go ahead and wear that mask.
Sure.
Because it's not about protection. It's about non-communication. Everybody knows it.
It's about obedience and about control.
That's right. That's right.
You must do what we are all doing.
Thank you, John, for the call tonight. I appreciate it. Well, you were saying something about smiles.
Yeah, I mean, smiling is such an intrinsic indicator that I am neither angry nor terrified, that it translates into our voice. Mm-hmm. That is how deeply written this is. Like, to take that away, to make children live in a world with no smiles.
It's just the horrendous level of this is incalculable.
Well, and illustration.
This is just one incident. Just one.
Yeah, there's thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions, perhaps.
I mean, that is downright Lovecraftian.
Around the world, yeah. An illustration of that was brought to my attention, and I think you saw the same video I did from like the Timcast or whatever. But an illustration that it's all about control was brought to my attention that I hadn't thought of before, and that is that in order to go to like a concert or something like that, they're saying you either need to have been vaccinated or produce a negative vaccine test. Mm-hmm. Now, if it were about your safety, because we know that both the vaccinated and the unvaccinated can carry and spread the thing.
That's
so
right.
if it was really about your safety, then you wouldn't be let into the concert just by having a vaccination. You would only get into the concert if you passed the test negative.
Yeah, if it was about stopping the spread.
Otherwise, it's all hypocrisy.
Yep. Also, this was only 1 minute and 20 seconds, so what happened after this?
Yeah.
How much longer did they
How
force
many
this?
days in a row have they done this to this kid or any others?
What did they do to him when he kept taking? Because they can't stand there over him for the entire time. So do they have like a special cave or cage that they put him in? If the timeout cage or whatever, lock him in a black room or something like that. What's next? More coming up. Free Talk Live.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
Breaking weather news. Belize is sunny and around 82 degrees every day this week.
What's the forecast for your life? If current politics and economic prospects are cramping your freedom, escape to the tropics. UCI Development has affordable second homes for you to own or rent in Belize and other tropical countries. Places with stable governments and growing economies. Secure your freedom now. To find out more, send an email to ftl@ecidevelopment.com.
When Monster Hunter International discovers one of Isaac Newton's wardstones being auctioned off, they decide to steal it and use it to destroy the Chaos God once and for all. But a mysterious thief upends their plan, and it soon becomes a race against time as something much older and infinitely more evil awakens in the jungles of South America. Monster Hunter Bloodlines by New York Times bestselling author Larry Correia and Baen Books. Visit monsterhunternation.com for more.
Join liberty-minded voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians from June 27th through July 3rd for the 6th annual Fork Fest at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. Fork Fest is a fork of the Porcupine Freedom Festival, which sold out for the first time in 2021. Fork Fest takes place the week after Pork Fest, but Fork Fest is decentralized, which means that there's no ticket cost and no one is in charge. All you have to do to join the fun is reserve your camping site, RV site, or motel room with Rogers Campground for June 27th through July 3rd. There's no better place to celebrate Independence Day than around other freedom-loving activists in the Shire. You can find out more at the unofficial website, forkfest.party. You can also connect with other attendees on the Forkfest Telegram and Matrix chat rooms, as well as the Forkfest forum. You can find links to those at forkfest.party. We hope to see you there. Forkfest.party. What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer-term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
This is Free Talk Live, and you can bring up whatever you want. The number here is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Joining you in the studio tonight, it's Ian.
Peakless Mountaineer.
The Reverend Captain Kickass is also here.
Last year, we told you about Intercoin, which can help any business or organization launch their own currency or raise money using your own token. Now, Intercoin.org has launched worldwide. Is there a token you want to launch or an app that you want to build? You can go to intercoin.org, enter your email, and the team will get in touch and learn about your needs. And while you're there, if you want, you can get some of the Intercoin investor tokens for yourself over at intercoin.org. We're going to continue with more of your calls and thoughts. Let's go first to Major Payne. He's on the line in Michigan. Major Payne.
Good evening, gentlemen. Thank you.
What's on your mind?
Good evening, Major.
Hey, well, to the captain. I am also an irate pirate. Yeah.
What's on your mind, dude?
Well, I was going to talk about my brother-in-law who'd been killed, I believe, by this Clovis shot over inflammation of his heart sac.
Oh, no.
But that seems like small potatoes after what we've been talking about here.
Mm.
I mean, there's so many factors. I mean, dogs, they respond to facial expressions, much less children. You can't teach a puppy with a mask on.
Mm-mm.
True.
Yeah,
I mean,
that is a fact.
If you walk up on a bear or any critter in the woods and he looks at you with a diabolical instinct, what are you going to do? You're going to shoot him.
If you
that's
found
why bears die.
Yeah, if most people would find a muzzled dog that had, I don't know, escaped its owner or gotten out of its yard or whatever and brought it home, they would remove the muzzle. Most people would. Now, I'm not saying that's a good idea because perhaps the dog's wearing a muzzle because it bites or whatever, but that is your instinct to do so.
Most dogs that are barking at you are wagging their tail. They just want somebody to come play with them.
Yeah, that's true.
If the dog's wagging his tail, he has no ill intent.
Well, that's not always true. They have not found that all dogs wagging their tails are, being nice.
I mean, that's true because some of them are eager just to attack. But those are war dogs. That's a whole differently trained tactic. But anyway, so back to the children. The Wuhan Institute, where this thing came from, these diabolical scientists have had 2.5 years since the inception of this first disease to create a second, a third, and a fourth. Although I know this thing does, what do they call it, reprocreate or change on its own. I mean, it had changed 500 times by the time it had been discovered upon our shores from its original inception.
Well, and the thing is, since people are getting, according to the official story, people are getting immunities to the spike proteins, then what it is doing when it changes in people who get the shot is that it's only changing the way that this virus attaches. So, it's not becoming less virulent, it's not becoming less effective, it's just changing the way that it attaches.
Well, I'm thinking that they redeveloped this thing because now the people that are showing up are the younger. This first was made to take the cobwebs out of the closet of the elderly and the sickly, right? And now they've reevaluated it and refactored it and refunctioned it, and now it's attacking the younger.
Is that true? Are the newer?
First I'm hearing.
Are the newer variants going after younger people?
I'm speculating, dude.
Okay, you're speculating. Okay, because I have not heard that at all. Major Payne, I have not heard that younger people are in any way susceptible whatsoever to this. And
have you ever heard any accurate reporting on any of these statistics since this thing started?
No. But one thing is for sure, I have not seen, and I appreciate your call. Thank you for making it tonight. But I haven't seen anything in reality either. Like, the people I know who've gotten this, all of them have beaten it. And they've had no issue whatsoever. Okay, Aria lost her sense of smell or her taste, but she also smokes cigarettes constantly. So that,
I lost that too. But I mean, the symptoms that I had,
but she lost it for weeks and weeks.
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
The symptoms that I had were very flu-like. They were just in a weird order. That was the difference for me.
Thank you, Major Payne. Appreciate it. Let's go to Bad Slave. He's on the line in New Hampshire. You're on Free Talk Live.
Howdy, guys.
Hey.
And Aria.
Aria's not here.
No, Aria's not there. Oh, excuse me. Anyway,
did I put on too much makeup?
I just wanted to bring up the informed consent. A doctor, I guess, what's his name? Sam Harris or something like that. He's a doctor that he seems like a really sharp MD, surgeon and all that. And he was bringing up the fact that a lot of this stuff is controlled by informed consent, particularly something where you have to take an injection. And I would say the same thing applies for forcing folk to put on a mask. I think that that informed consent needs to be fully exercised.
And what you mean by that is that the person should have knowledge about the possible risks from both sides of doing a thing to their health or to their well-being, their mental well-being or whatever, before they make the decision, not just do a thing because they were told to. Is that what you're referring to?
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And that in fact they don't, if they choose through this informed consent that they're exempt, then they're exempt. I'm sorry. This is just the way it should be.
Well, one thing's for sure, a 2-year-old child cannot make an informed decision on anything whatsoever, and it's just absolutely sick to see what they're doing to these kids in these daycares and preschools, and man, that video.
In the bigger picture, though, like, government has really never given two craps about your consent.
No, that's not what it's ever been about. Although, at the same time, in their governing documents, and thank you, Bad Slave, for the call tonight, in the constitutions, for instance, in many states, there's always some sort of line about how government is by the consent of the governed. So they love to throw it in your face, the idea
funny how they never check.
Yeah, or care when you tell them, no thanks. Yeah, no, I don't need your services.
If this was consent, they'd be a company, not a government.
That's consent of the governed 200 years ago does not apply to me.
Even then, it wasn't consent of the governed. It was the men in a room somewhere who wrote a thing down on a piece of paper and put their names to it. Oh. They consented.
Oh, and fun fact, the ones who got sent to form this government specifically did not have permission to reform the government. They had permission to tweak a few things to change the original Confederation. They did not have permission to create this government.
Yeah, there are people that have pointed out that this essentially was like a coup, right?
Yeah,
the Constitution of the U.S. was a coup.
Yeah, well, and don't forget the massacre that preceded that as well. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
By the way, I think New Hampshire was the first state to write a constitution. Isn't that true? I think that's the case because the folks over at the Foundation for New Hampshire Independence, I'll pull up the details on it here. They've got a slogan of "First before, first again," meaning that we were the first to leave under King George.
Right.
603-283-6160. So it's time to do it again.
Okay.
Leave King DC. We're coming up here. This is Free Talk Live.
Carl Watner, longtime proponent of a voluntary society, died last December. You may have seen his articles published on his website, voluntarist.com, in his newsletter, The Voluntarist, the Mises Institute, or elsewhere over the last 40 years. His newest book, I Must Speak Out, Volume 2, The Best of the Voluntarist, is now available via Liberty Under Attack Publications. This 430-page second volume spans the years of 2000 through 2020 and includes articles by Carl Watner, Hans Hermann Hoppe, Carl Hess, Benjamin Tucker, George H. Smith, Lysander Spooner, Pete Eyre, Joyce Brand, and many others. I Must Speak Out is for the newly initiated, the veteran voluntarist, or anywhere in between. Buy the book now at libertyunderattack.com/voluntarist. For more great content on building a voluntary society and for Carl's extensive archives, check out voluntarist.com.
From Feature Story News in New York, I'm William Denzelo with the Week in Review. The United States this week has defended its new military alliance with Australia and the United Kingdom, following an international diplomatic backlash. The three-way AUKUS agreement will allow Australia to build nuclear-powered submarines using US and UK technology. But the security alliance has angered China, Beijing seeing it as an effort to counter its claims in the South China Sea and cause problems with US ally France. Nick Harper reports from Washington.
France felt particularly cold-shouldered, losing out on a $66 billion deal to build Australia's submarines. US Secretary of State Anthony Blinken tried to calm the waters of international diplomacy.
There is no regional divide separating the interests of our Atlantic and our Pacific partners. This partnership with Australia and the United Kingdom is a signal that we're committed to working with our allies and partners, including in Europe.
The White House says France was warned about the alliance before it was announced. Despite their feelings of betrayal, say the pact will help to counter China's dominance in the Indo-Pacific region.
US Secretary of State Antony Blinken faced a grilling on Capitol Hill this week for the Biden administration's handling of the withdrawal from Afghanistan. Chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, Senator Bob Menendez, also threatened to subpoena Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin if he doesn't agree to testify. Kate Fisher reports from the US Capitol.
The sharp rebuke from the fellow Democrat came as Secretary of State Antony Blinken faced a second day of questioning by lawmakers over the chaotic exit from Afghanistan.
While we understand and appreciate the security issues that were at play, it's confounding that such a chaotic process arose to begin with.
But Mr. Blinken strongly defended President Joe Biden's decision to end America's 20-year war and the administration's handling of the evacuation. He said no one in the US government predicted the Afghan security forces would surrender to the Taliban so quickly.
And the United Nations is warning Earth is on a catastrophic pathway, with global temperatures poised to rise 2.7 degrees Celsius by the end of the century. That's according to a new report from the UN Climate Agency. Rachel Silverman has more.
The report shows emissions of planet-warming gases are poised to grow by 16% during this decade compared with 2010 levels, even though the latest scientific research indicates they need to decrease by at least a quarter by 2030 to avert the worst impacts of global warming. That level of warming is likely to worsen extreme wildfires, droughts, and floods, to increase the frequency of deadly heat waves, and to threaten coastal cities with rising sea levels.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
This is Free Talk Live. You can bring up whatever you want. Number 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. In the studio here tonight on this live Saturday show, it's Ian.
Beagless Mountaineer.
And Captain Kickass.
Of course, you can bring up whatever you want to discuss. We got some other stuff in the news, including the murder that the Pentagon has admitted to. The most recent murder, of course. Although it's not murder when they do it, it's just an unauthorized or
hard to tell if it's the most recent as
mistaken killing. It was an authorized killing in this case, but it was a mistaken killing, and of course, no one will go to prison for it. But Captain, you've got a story about that on the way here.
Just an undocumented execution. That's all.
Well, it apparently was documented in this case. That's why they're admitting to it. But we'll tell you about that on the way. And don't forget, you can join us online anytime you want. Head over to freetalklive.com. Peakless Mountaineer, brand new on our social media. You can check his profile out. He just joined tonight over at social.freetalklive.com.
Welcome to the funhouse.
He's got one of the apps installed on his mobile device, which, as I was telling him about, is there's a bunch of different apps out there for Mastodon. So Mastodon is this open source alternative to Twitter that we've installed. I mentioned it earlier in the show, but since that time, you've signed up, Peakless, so I wanted to mention it again. So folks that want to follow him, you'll automatically follow Peakless Mountaineer as well as me and the Captain and a few other hosts when you join the server. Now, if you don't like one of us, you can always unfollow, so we don't force you to.
Oh, what?
But it just
go unfollow you.
It just loads you up with a few.
I've been following you this whole time, and I can unfollow.
It just loads you up with a few default follows when you get started over there at social.freetalklive.com. And like I said, there's different apps, so you can get apps for desktop, laptop, computers, Windows, There's different set of apps for Windows than there are for like Linux, and there's different apps for the phone than there are for iPhone versus Android because it's open source.
Is there a browser-based app?
Probably. Yeah, in fact, well, social.freetalklive.com. I mean, you could just go and use the browser there. But if you want to download an actual app, there's a bunch of different choices out there because it's open source, which means that anybody who wants to, if they don't like Tusky, which is the one that I think most of the people on Android are using, they can try one of the other ones. Or if they don't like any of them that are available, if you're a programmer, you can just roll up your own app. Which is different than what you're used to, right? With like Twitter or Facebook, where it's like you get their sucky app.
And that's it.
So check it out over at social.freetalklive.com.
It's the way of the future.
Let's get into this story because I don't want to talk further about this sick video of the kid being abused, and probably not uncommon video. It's just the first, or the uncommon situation is the first video we've seen of this abuse happening. But some of the comments on this are really sick, with the people just justifying what was being done, and we cannot live together with these people anymore. We have to separate. I'm liking what I'm seeing on social media. A lot of people are talking about independence. A lot of people are talking about secession of various different states. And let's get into another reason for leaving the United States. Captain, what's your story?
Well, so this story is, I believe our frequent caller Jet would say something along the lines of an exercise in how government obfuscates language and uses different language than we would use for the circumstances when it applies to them. This is from Reason.com. Pentagon admits to accidentally killing civilians, not terrorists, in Kabul drone strike. The Pentagon admitted today what independent analysis had already concluded: a drone strike at the end of August that was meant to target Islamic State terrorists instead hit and killed 10 civilians, 7 of whom were children. On August 29th, the U.S. Central Command announced the military had used a drone to kill an ISIS terrorist who was plotting an attack on Kabul International Airport just days after a previous bombing killed 13 U.S. troops and at least 170 Afghans. But after the announcement, it appeared that the drone strike had instead killed an aid worker assisting a California-based nonprofit that helped feed refugees, along with several of his family members. At the time, military officials insisted that the hit was a righteous strike and that the vehicle was carrying explosives for a possible attack.
Except it wasn't.
Further investigation showed that the car was probably carrying water, not bombs, and the aid worker, Zamari Ahmadi, was not, in fact, connected to the Islamic State. Today, the Pentagon acknowledged that the intelligence that led to the strike was wrong and that it had killed a group of civilians. And this is a quote from the New York Times. "I offer my profound condolences to the family and friends of those who were killed." General Kenneth F. McKenzie Jr., commander of the United States Central Command, told reporters.
That makes everything better. He's sorry.
Back when we actually kept track of this, which we stopped, thanks Trump.
You mean the federal government?
Yeah. Sorry. Thank you. Again, poor use of language. Back when the federal government kept track of the ratio of how many actual targets to how much what they call collateral damage, it's 90%. 90% of the people that these drones were killing were innocent victims.
And I have a whole bunch of problems with the language being used in this article because it's not raw. You know, it's, well, we accidentally... No, you murdered. You didn't accidentally kill anybody. You murdered somebody.
Intentionally killed this person.
You intentionally murdered these people. Whether or not, we had bad intel. Well, you still murdered some people. Still murder.
Maybe there's a reason that we have things like trials so that we can be sure that the people that we're killing need to be killed. Just a thought.
So all of the language, used in this is not on point. And, Reason's usually pretty good, but this is, some word salad they're using here. The quote from the New York Times: "I offer my profound condolences to the family and friends of those who were killed," said General Kenneth F. McKenzie Jr., who's the commander, or the general. He told reporters at a Pentagon news conference Friday, he said, the U.S. was exploring the possibility of ex gratia payments to compensate the families of the victims.
Oh, it's all better. He's sorry.
Oh, we're sorry. We accidentally murdered your family. Here's some
check.
money.
Well, I mean, I'm actually surprised to hear that they're even considering cutting them a check. Although the story at CNN about this says that McKenzie added he is, quote, fully responsible for this strike and this tragic outcome. Does that mean he's going to be paying for this?
Does that mean we get to put you in jail?
No, what it means is the taxpayers are going to pay for this.
Because when you're fully responsible, last I checked, what we do to people who are fully responsible for killing people that didn't do anything is we put them in jail.
Yeah, I mean, even if he himself were to like pony up some money, that would be accepting some responsibility. But just saying a thing doesn't mean you're really feeling fully responsible or doing anything
and
about it.
And this guy's statements to the press and everything are just backpedal, 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 backpedal. You got caught red-handed murdering innocent people, and now you're doing damage control. And
this was literally right before they left.
Yes.
This was 2 days before the end of the...
Don't worry, American public. We'll pay him back by stealing from you.
Yep.
McKenzie even went so far as to credit the Times for some of the independent review of the attack. Reporters looked over surveillance footage and recreated Ahmadi's final workday, showing that his travels through Kabul all had reasonable explanations and that he was not organizing for an attack. The Times also suggested that at some point the officials surveilling potential terrorists might have mixed up Ahmadi's vehicle with a similar car that was used the next day to attempt a rocket attack on the airport. Not only was this an indictment of the poor intelligence being used to plan for drone strikes, but it was also telling how loose those in charge were with allowing for a drone strike. There was never a point where the people who cleared the strike had any actual evidence that Ahmadi had explosives in his vehicle. The strike was justified on the basis of the suspicion of what he might have had. Where have we heard this before?
General, it looks like we've got some men in the back of a Toyota truck driving westbound. All right, let them fly.
We've heard this before. It was starting of wars, weapons of mass destruction that were never found.
We've heard it so many times.
I'm tired of it.
They could have fit them. They could have fit him there. So that's enough.
The number is 603-283-6160. We've got time for you if you want to join us in the remaining moments of Free Talk Live that are coming up. 603-283-6160 live Saturday edition of Free Talk Live continues.
Excuse me, is this where I get a license to start a new business?
I wouldn't be hasty. You have to get a license to go out of business, too, you know.
Oh, well, look, I've invented this little anti-gravity machine, see?
Oh, is that why you're walking 2 inches above the floor?
Oh, yes, it's very comfortable. It saves on shoe leather.
Yeah, well, you have to fill out these forms and report to the Human Services Department of Manpower Orientation and register with the Fair Employment Practice Commission, the Wage and Hour Division of the Employment Standards Administration, the State Sales and Income Tax Division, the Internal Revenue Service, and the Social Security Administration of the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare, and, of course, OSHA.
OSHA? I thought that was a little town in Wisconsin.
You'll find out. Say, floating around like that could be dangerous. Have you checked with the Consumer Product Safety Commission?
Well, not yet.
Come to think of it, you actually are flying, aren't you? Look, you need to go over to the Federal Aviation Administration and the Transportation...
It's very hard to get anything done these days if you're in business, but free enterprise built this country. Think what could happen if we don't keep it free. A public service of this station and the Center for the Defense of Free Enterprise, Bellevue, Washington.
We just can't have people floating about unregulated, you know.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in Liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm. Why did you move to the Shire?
I moved here to the Shire because there's other people around who take liberty just as seriously as I do.
I moved to the Shire because I saw videos of people challenging authority and thought that I could get support myself. It called to me, like, do this, right now.
I wanted to be around people like me who got it, and once I got here, I knew there was nowhere else that I wanted to be.
I've always wanted to change the world, so I moved to the Shire to join people who were actually working towards doing the same thing.
The people here are awesome, loving, and positive. It was for the adventure and for the feeling of something important is happening here, and I just wanted to come to sort of be part of that.
Visit ShireSociety.com to read and sign the Shire Society Declaration and learn the reasons why, if you love liberty, you should immigrate to the Shire. Plus, connect with others via the forum at ShireSociety.com. That's ShireSociety.com. Some of you asked, and now we've delivered. LRN.FM's live Keene, New Hampshire studio shows are now streamed in HD on Twitch. Visit our channel at twitch.lrn.fm and give it a follow. If you have Amazon Prime, you get one free subscription on Twitch. If you use it on our channel, Twitch will give LRN.FM a monthly piece of your Prime subscription cost. So please watch, follow, share, and subscribe to twitch.lrn.fm. That's twitch.lrn.fm. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. Just moments remaining here tonight. We still have time for you if you want to dial in right now. We can get you on. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. And here tonight, it's Ian.
Speakless Mountaineer.
The Reverend Captain Kickass is here.
Check out more from the captain over at LordKickass.com. He's got song parodies.
I do.
So enjoy those when you get a chance. Also, worldwidedemonstration.com. We started the show out talking about this thing that happened in cities all across the planet in the last, well, more than 24 hours because they started technically yesterday in places like Australia where things got pretty violent because the government there is on total lockdown and people leaving their homes is basically a crime. So hundreds of arrests, massive clashes with police there. Here in New Hampshire, it was peaceful. It was calm. It was nice out, beautiful day. A great day to go out and meet people and talk about independence. And that's what Bonnie and I went out to do. It was to take the temperature of the group, which obviously is likely to lean towards this particular viewpoint. But I'm happy to talk to anybody about independence. This happened to be the protest of the day. And so, we talked to folks, and almost everyone that we spoke with was in favor of New Hampshire declaring independence from the United States. There were a few that said they weren't sure. They had to do some more research. They're not certain about it. But they definitely had an open mind towards. They were considering. You could tell they were considering this for the very first time.
Did you run into questions like most of the questions I've heard from people are like logistical stuff, like, oh, well, would we still use the dollar or that kind of a thing?
I didn't get that one. I did get what about Medicare and Social Security, which is the one I've heard the most, I think, from people. People are used to getting payments from the government. And that is one of the hardest things to break people from. Is like, hey, you're a welfare recipient. What are you going to do about that?
Right. Well, and it is one of those things where, are you concerned about the elderly receiving medical care? So is everyone else.
Yes.
So we're going to do that.
Yeah, and that's one of the points I made was, hey, if you're not paying taxes to the federal government, and I did point out also that New Hampshire is what's called a donor state, meaning that the amount of taxes taken from New Hampshire people and then returned by the federal government to the state government, so the people don't get it back, but the state gets it back, is lower.
Yep.
Meaning, so the amount that is given to the federal government under threat and duress and coercion, and then the amount given back. So the amount given is higher than the amount given back, which means New Hampshire is a donor state. And so we will keep all of that revenue here in New Hampshire when New Hampshire secedes from the United States. That makes New Hampshire all the more wealthy, and it means that programs and voluntary charities and things like that to help the needy would be all the more possible.
Well,
here.
and like for the first time in 200 years, we, and by we I mean people, industrious people, or people with ideas, people, creative people who have. We could put together, we could build new things, right? Like you're saying, a charity system to care for the elderly that they're concerned with. We could build a new one,
a better one,
and one that's not under threat and duress, one that's not based on coercion, not based on violence.
So government programs waste 80% of that money on their overhead, and about 20% goes to whatever it is you actually wanted, whereas private charities, it's the other way around.
That's right.
It's 80-20 in the other direction.
And the cool thing about a private charity is if you don't like how they're spending the money, you can stop giving to that person or that charity, and you can start your own or whatever.
I mean, we were just talking about the government murder, and I'd like to point out to our listeners that they bought that bomb. They paid for that.
Taxpayers did.
Yeah, they're the ones that paid for that. Now, if we had our own money, if we weren't part of the federal government running around being an empire, then how much of this murder do you think we would actually pay for? Because if people actually had to be talked into it, I don't think there'd be
You can't
much.
even talk New Hampshire people into putting up street signs on every corner.
Right.
I mean, these are some of the most frugal people out there. It's actually a little annoying sometimes. Like when you first come here, I remember when I first moved to Keene, I'm like, where the hell am I? There's no street signs around here. You have to go to like the end of the street, like the very, very end of the street that might dump out onto a major highway. And then you will see what the name of the road is. So if you don't have GPS, in a lot of cases, you're completely disoriented. Like if you ain't from around here, you don't know where you are.
Yeah, and I just heard a commercial talking about like over-regulation. Guess what? Regulations are expensive to enforce.
All regulation is over-regulation.
Yeah. So I mean, if you had to convince people to pay for regulation, how much do you think they're going to do that?
Oh, and think of the entrepreneurs too, who could come in and instead of everything being sort of funded by government, they could come in with business ideas or how to incorporate some of these services into existing businesses. Insurance companies for a long time have been stifled by government from doing any sort of innovation. Things could easily be rolled into different types of businesses that have never been done before. We have an opportunity in front of us, not something to be scared. Well, what will we do without this thing? No. What kind of things will we create once this thing's the hell out of our way?
Yeah, and you can see a little bit of it happening right now. Like people still, even the marketplace that in the healthcare industry that is so super regulated. I mean, there's so many regulations with healthcare. That's why the prices are insane, and there's very little selection. But even within that area, even within that tightly regulated sphere, there's still people trying to do everything they can to do something original. And I got to give credit to some doctors here in Keene.
Yes,
they're accepting cryptocurrency.
Yes,
and they're doing what's called direct primary care, which is a very interesting business model. They are not taking Medicare. They're not taking insurance payments.
Yep.
And as a result of that, guess what? They don't have any staff.
Well, and as soon as they, let's just say there was, another competing business with these people who do take those. Well, when they take Medicare, Medicaid, any government thing, they're automatically beholden to the government systems, which means they are not able to give the best care to their patients.
No, they can't. They're busy doing paperwork.
Right.
And these doctors know that. They've been in that system, and that's what drove them to try this new business model where they are dealing directly with their patients. When you call up and you've got an issue, you're talking to the doctor. There's not a secretary there. When you walk in,
it's a superior model.
Yeah, it's very interesting. It's very minimalistic, but yet you get more service. Well, I sat with that doctor because I went in, and we sat down for my initial intake. It was an hour-long conversation just talking about all kinds of different things. We talked about crypto. We talked about what their history was, moving to Keene. They're from Mexico originally, and an hour with a doctor. Like, that's unheard of at the standard practices where it's like, okay, the doctor comes in for 5 minutes, issues you a prescription, and walks out, right? That's it. You might have time to ask one question or something.
Well, and in that type of a model, too, care is highly individualized, unlike what you have now. You don't have a healthcare system. You have a disease management system.
And you know what? it's like for a couple, I think they charge $108 a month.
Yeah. Very reasonable.
That's not insane at all.
Do you know if you subscribe to that service, if that satisfies like the federal insurance requirement?
They don't take any insurance.
Right, but I'm just saying, like,
you are federally required to have insurance. Does that satisfy
Obamacare,
that?
like,
I have no idea.
If you subscribe to their service, does that qualify you as, quote, insured, unquote, so that you're not forced into, like, Obamacare when you file your taxes?
You should call them and ask them that question, because I can't give you tax advice or any kind of legal advice. But
and I just love that the incentive is in the right direction, because they're going to get X dollars no matter what amount of care they have to give you. So if they give you the right care so you don't have to come in and see them, free money.
They're good.
Yes. Yep. The incentive is the way it used to be with the friendly societies. They would pool their money together to hire a doctor for a year. And the doctor's incentive to keep everybody healthy was if somebody got sick, they would stop paying. That person who got sick would stop paying until they were healthy again. And so the doctors had the incentive to keep the people healthy. What it also means is that this type of model will allow for, I'm going to say, non-government sanctioned treatments. Right? There's certain treatments like eating healthy that aren't certified by government. Like, you won't go to your doctor and they'll say, well, how much, fruits and vegetables are you eating?
Have you been outside this month?
Right. Yeah.
These are questions she asked, by the way.
Right. Yeah. And so they're able to tailor a plan for you individually that includes not just whatever's included by the government, but other things, alternative medicines of all different sorts.
Yep. Which they are also into.
A far superior model in every way.
Yeah, I was impressed. And so that's just one example of like the current situation where there's so many regulations and so many
Prevention
controls.
Instead of cure. What a concept.
And so what would that look like in a true free market, and what sort of neat things would develop? We've yet to discover that. But the other point I made to these folks that were concerned about Medicare and all that, I said, hey, it's going away at some point. The federal government even admitted the other day, we had it in show prep where they said that Social Security is going to run out of money in 12 years now instead of 13. They had to readjust their numbers, quote unquote, due to COVID. So, these programs aren't going to last however long they're out there for. You can't expect them to do much of anything for you. So you better figure out how to take care of yourself. And leaving the United States, the amount of wealth that any state will have to itself after that will be tremendous, because it won't be siphoned off by these scum-sucking, lying, murderous bureaucrats in D.C. We'll see you tomorrow night, freetalklive.com. In the meantime.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
This is the Liberty Radio Network, broadcasting the latest liberty-oriented audio content 24 hours a day at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in New York, I'm William Denzelo with the Week in Review. The United States this week has defended its new military alliance with Australia and the United Kingdom, following an international diplomatic backlash. The three-way AUKUS agreement will allow Australia to build nuclear-powered submarines using US and UK technology. But the security alliance has angered China, Beijing seeing it as an effort to counter its claims in the South China Sea and cause problems with US ally France. Nick Harper reports from Washington.
France felt particularly cold-shouldered, losing out on a $66 billion deal to build Australia's submarines. US Secretary of State Anthony Blinken tried to calm the waters of international diplomacy.
There is no regional divide separating the interests of our Atlantic and our Pacific partners.